Both were against. And which item number is that, B or D? B, okay, so only D would be the only one, okay. Okay, got it. Ready? All right, good morning, everyone. We're going to call this meeting to order. Today is Monday, May 20th. We are at the Town Hall Complex at 2731 Oak Street. It is 9:01. Council members are all present with the excused absence of Councilor Woodson, Town Manager, Town Attorney. If you please rise for the invocation, followed by Councilor Safford leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance. Oh, ouch. Close.
We meet today to focus on the very best that can happen for our lives. Show us what we need to do this day. Give us strength physically, mentally, and emotionally. Help us to successfully meet every aspect of our lives. We ask to be inspired with creative and dynamic ideas and trust we are guided so that we can meet our lives with joy and confidence. Amen.
Amen.
Okay, I got this now.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Appreciate your enthusiasm, Scott. Go America. All right, go America, go.
Next is the approval of the final agenda. Is there a motion to approve the final agenda?
Mayor, I'd like to pull A from the consent agenda just for further explanation.
Okay. Are there any other changes?
With that, I'll move approval of the final agenda.
I'll second that.
Got a motion by Councilor King, seconded by Councilor Safford. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries unanimously. Public comment.
I have two. First up is Stephen Ramuni, and after Stephen will be Cindy Johnson.
Good morning, Stephen Ramuni on behalf
Good
of
morning.
White Sands.
You want to pull that up for me? Thanks,
Stephen
sir.
Ramuni on behalf of White Sands Properties. If you recall, I was here last meeting with regards to White Sands' request or motion for forgiveness of the code enforcement liens. Since then, there's been a little bit of a couple other items that I wanted to bring to council's attention. There was a zoning verification letter, I believe that was dated in November of 2020, which showed the property to be in compliance as of that date. If you recall, at the last meeting, we had a little bit of a discussion with regards to the appropriate amount for the starting point of the fines on the property, and that number was given to be in excess of $1.2 million. So if you look at the zoning verification letter in 2020, it can't be both ways. If the property was brought into compliance in 2020, then the amount of the fine that was produced by staff is incorrect. I went ahead and ran the numbers off the code enforcement orders that were originally issued, and I ran them through October 31st of 2020, and the letter specifically is November 15, 2020, the zoning letter verification that dates back to November 5th, 2020. So when you actually look at the numbers, the amount comes to approximately $420,000, give or take a few days here or there. So we were asking for reconsideration or clarification as it pertains to my client's motion to forgive the liens. Looking at your ordinance, I believe we're administratively not quite in the right place, because according to the ordinance, the city or town manager is assigned to first investigate the parameters of the motion for forgiveness in this particular case. So that's essentially what we're requesting. Or the clarification is whether or not at last meeting, if the town council voted to essentially, and that's the final word, then we need to know that administratively as well. So essentially we're requesting that the town manager investigate the various issues, what's the true amount of the fine. Obviously, you don't necessarily need to take my word for it, but there is a big discrepancy. So if the property was in compliance, because I think that was very, there was a finding that the property was not brought into compliance until Hurricane Ian. We believe that's incorrect. So we're requesting for clarification or reconsideration in that regard. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Cindy?
Cindy.
Good morning, Cindy Johnson from Turtle Time and a resident of Fort Myers Beach. A quick update, we had 2 more nests this morning, so we're up to 14, so that's awesome. And a few more false crawls, which is expected with the way the beach is right now. Looking forward to our renourishment soon. Today, I brought you all a copy of the technical reports. It's a 2014 version, but it has so much information in there, it can definitely help you answer questions when people ask you questions. And we have several visitors showing up on the beach already, our summertime visitors, and they're quite excited about the turtles and want to learn as much as they possibly can. We have this document's posted at turtletime.org on our homepage, and maybe we can post it on the town's webpage too, the link to it. So if you ever have questions, contact Eve or me, and we're more than happy to help. Thank you.
Okay, Cindy, don't run off. If I may, just proceed out of order real quick. I just wanted to bring something up to
Without
you
objection.
since you were here. Thank you.
Yeah.
There was a person that came to me yesterday and talked about the coloring book, and they feel there's a couple misinformations in there. I can't remember what the second one was, but the first one was about manatee zones or a no-wake zone, and that's not technically true. And I don't remember what the other one is, but it's in the coloring book, so they asked if I'd bring it up, so I'm bringing it up. That there was one other thing, and I can't remember what it was off the top of my head, but
Okay, well,
I asked them to reach out to you to
You
be
convey
able to talk
that to
about
the
it.
chairman?
yeah, okay, I'll give that
Well,
message
Steve-
to my husband.
Steve's not here, so I figured this was the closest way to do it.
Yeah. Okay, I will relay that, yeah, I mean,
Yeah, right?
lots of people went over that, but I will look again and see what it was. So
Okay.
they're talking about the
The
speed zone.
the no wake zone and the manatee zones is technically not true. And then I'm sorry, I can't remember the other one off the top of my head. I wrote it down, but I forgot it at home.
Okay,
But I told them to reach out to Murph as well.
yeah.
To let
Those
you know.
would be the people, I'm not responsible for that, but
I
I'll
figured
let them
I
know.
figured you'd be able to get the message to the chairman.
I will. Have a good day, everyone.
Thank you.
You too.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak in public comment? Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Local achievements and recognitions. Counselor Safford?
Wow, you just gave me the biggest softball ever. I mean, Friday was an awesome day. I mean, Mike and Don Miller should be applauded. The town staff, LPA, council, everybody worked together to get to a yes. And it was the right answer. And it was a special day. And I applaud those guys.
All right. Anything else?
Nope.
Vice Mayor Holt?
Ditto on Scott's. I'd also like to thank the folks at Beach Talk Radio for the day before Mother's Day run. It was a success. I wanted to thank the sponsors. I wanted to thank all the volunteers. I wanted to thank the town for partnering. I wanted to thank all the runners and walkers, and I think they raised $6,500 plus for the Women's Club. Great cause, great event. Great to see the energy down there in Times Square with the farmers market going on. Just so much activity, particularly in these shoulder months for season. So it was a very nice event. That's all I have. Thanks.
And the 93-year-old that completed the race.
Yes.
With
was pretty impressive.
Very impressive.
Counselor King?
I just have one. I'll just piggyback a little bit on what Councilor Safford said. Congratulations to Don and Mike Miller and also Greg Van Krumrig. Groundbreaking for the whale. It was fantastic. Smiles on everybody's faces. And it was nice to see island residents bringing back an island icon.
Very good. Well, all mine have been covered, so I won't reiterate it. Yes, sir?
Mayor, if I may, a couple things. You notice that the town staff is sitting closer, so they get all of your energy and they understand and they have a really good focus.
They don't have spit
and I
in them.
appreciate that. It's good to see them up close and personal. And Curtis, if you wouldn't mind, just stand up. Curtis Ludwig, our new harbor master. Just wanted to introduce him and
Come on up to the mic. Introduce yourself.
just
Curtis.
introduce yourself and say anything you want to say. But we're excited to have him. He's fitting right in, and Frankie and staff did a great job. Talisa, who isn't here by the way, Talisa had a baby boy
Congratulations.
Saturday night. Everybody's healthy. I went and saw them yesterday. They're all doing great. So if you wouldn't mind, sir, sorry to segue back to you
Yeah,
now.
you're good. Good morning, everybody. My name is Curtis Ludwig. As I stated, I'm a harbor master here. I'm originally born and raised in Jacksonville, Florida, so I'm a Florida native. I've grown up in the maritime industry. I did 10 years in the Coast Guard. I have an extensive maritime background in the commercial side of things. I ran a company in Jacksonville. We docked the tanker vessels that came into port and all that. So I'm excited. I'm excited to be here. I thought that this was a great opportunity and fits what I like to do to a T. So any questions y'all have, please reach out to me, and I'm here to make the mooring field a better place and where it needs to be. That's my goal here. So.
Thank you, Kurt. Just for FYI, for folks who are watching, the Anchorage Advisory Committee is meeting at 9 o'clock this Wednesday. If folks want to have further information or dialogue with Kurt, we encourage you to stop by or watch online.
Please do. I'll be there.
All right, thank you, Curtis.
Welcome.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Curtis. Welcome
Thank you
aboard.
very much. Appreciate y'all.
Anything else, Town Manager?
No, sir.
Didn't mean to interrupt. Just
No, we're see if he had anything.
okay. They're good. All right. Next is advisory committees, items, reports, and appointments. Is there anyone? No. Okay. Approval of the minutes from the draft strategy planning session minutes on April 30th, the draft town council minutes May 6th, and the draft management and planning session minutes from May 8th. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll move that, Mayor.
I'll second.
Got a motion by Counselor King, seconded by Counselor Safford. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries unanimously. Next is the consent agenda item. Item A has been pulled. Items B, there's only item B. Is there a motion to approve consent agenda?
So moved.
We've got a motion by Counselor Safford,
Second
seconded
by-
by Counselor King. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries unanimously. Next, we've got the item A, Resolution 24-95, Florida Division of Historical Resources Grant, pulled by Counselor King. Yes, sir.
I was just seeking an understanding for the general public.
Yeah, this grant is going to help us rebuild the underground exhibit at the Mound House. It was obviously damaged and flooded completely. Oh, Jeff Hauge, sorry. Town of Fort Myers Beach Park, Cultural Parks and Rec Director and Public Works. So the match part of it is going to be our salaries over the not to exceed 2 years. So $90,000 of the $180,000 that we're getting as the grant is going to be more of an in-kind match with our salaries that are already included. So
I'm not sure I understand.
it's the $180,000 is a match grant.
Okay.
It's a 50-50 grant. So we had to put in $90,000 of it, and that's going to go. That's our the salaries of the staff that are working on it. That's our portion of it, but.
Okay.
Yeah, so we don't have to put any, monetary value to the match grant. It's going to be all with our staffing, and that'll go to get the electrical and the AV system and the underground exhibit.
So the grant really isn't 180,000 then,
The grant we will get is 180,000.
Oh, is it?
Yes.
even with the 90?
Yeah, we have to put in. Well, we put in half with the staffing. So the total grant is 100, but so instead of a monetary value, we're using our staff time. So we'll get 90,000 of that to put into the underground, but the grant is for 180,000.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Jeff, since you have the microphone, you'd be remiss if you didn't just give a thumbnail sketch of what the underground exhibit is, and when will it be ready to for prime time?
Yeah, so we had a pretty good system in there to start. The underground exhibit is it's at the Mound House location. It's where there used to be a pool at the house that's there. When they took the pool out, they discovered there was shell that was lining it. So you can see the different levels of how the shell mound was built by the Calusa. So we saved it as an exhibit. It's really cool. It's probably our most wanted to be attraction there. And you can see what it kind of looked like. You can see the levels of how the Calusa stacked it up. You can see burn marks from fire pits and that kind of thing that are in there. So it's really cool. We had an AV system with a couple with the TVs in there to kind of do the presentation. We had the different levels of the years that it was in with rope lights. We want to do it a little bit nicer this time with maybe some lasers. What happened with the rope lights is when the underground flooded, we had a little bit of the shell come down and it actually hit the rope lights and we can't touch them. So they're kind of permanently in the exhibit too, because we can't go in and dig them out, obviously. So we want to do kind of a laser so that doesn't happen again. So we don't have the lines running through the actual exhibit. So we're looking to improve that as well.
Thank you.
Thanks, Very nice. Anything else, John?
Mayor, I'll move Resolution 24-95, Florida Division of Historical Resources Grant.
Okay.
I'll second.
Got a motion by Counselor King, seconded by Counselor Safford. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries unanimously. Next is our public hearings. There are, what do we got? 4?
5.
5. I only got 4.
Okay, the bid protest is also a
Okay.
quasi-judicial, so we're going to,
That's item A under administrative agenda.
Correct.
Okay, so there'll be 5. Okay.
yes.
So the 5. So the next 5 items on our agenda are public hearings for review of various land use requests for the benefit of the public. Please be aware that these items are quasi-judicial in nature. Our attorney will further explain.
Thank you, Mayor. Zoning revisions, special exceptions, variances, and bid protests are all quasi-judicial in nature, which requires our public hearings to comply with procedural requirements established in Florida law and in our land development code. Quasi-judicial proceedings are less formal than proceedings before the circuit court, but are more formal than the remainder of our meeting and follow basic standards of due process requiring certain notices, application of the correct standards, and decisions made on competent and substantial evidence presented to the town council in written documents or oral testimony. The town council will evaluate the testimony and information for each item and draw a conclusion regarding whether the criteria in the state law or land development code as may be applicable has been satisfied. Pure speculation or mere opinion not based on competent facts cannot be legally considered by the town council in evaluating an agenda item. Testimony by professionals who are qualified as experts in a particular area is considered competent evidence by Florida courts, as well as testimony by neighbors and residents who have fact-based information such as minutes, surveys, engineering reports, etc., or testimony based on personal information. If you intend to speak, please keep this in mind. When you come forward, please state your name clearly for the record, whether or not you've been sworn in, and your qualifications or interest in the matter. For purposes of efficiency, before beginning any of the public hearings, I need to dispose of a few matters. Town clerk, if required, were all agenda items properly advertised?
Yes, they were.
At this time, if any town council member has a conflict of interest that would prohibit them from voting on any of these items, please disclose this for the record at this time so that we can assure that we will have a quorum present for review of all the items.
Counselor King?
None.
Vice Mayor Holt?
None.
I do not have any. Counselor Safford?
Nor do I.
At this time, if there is anyone present, including the applicant, property owner, staff, who intends to provide testimony in any of the 5 hearings, please stand, raise your right hand, and be sworn in by the town clerk.
Ooh, that's a whole room.
All right. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? All right. All parties have been sworn.
Sarah, do you want to?
Sarah.
Okay. We'll let Sarah get moved and then we'll read it.
We were tired of him.
Yeah, we're tired of Frankie.
Thank you.
He's got work to do. All right. Okay, this item is the first reading and public hearing on proposed ordinance 24-14 entitled An ordinance of the Town of Fort Myers Beach, Florida, approving with conditions, or denying the commercial plan development, CPD, zoning for the property located at 841 Estero Boulevard, generally identified as strap numbers 24-46-23-4W3-0050B.0010, Fort Myers Beach, providing for other clarifications as necessary, providing for conflicts of law, Scrivener's errors, severability, and providing for an effective date. We'll now open the first public hearing. What do we got here? If any town council member has any ex parte communication to disclose, please let us know the subject discussed and the identity of the person, group, or entity with whom the communication took place, any correspondence that you received, or observations made of the site. Councilor King?
None that I recall.
Vice Mayor Adderholt?
None as well.
Councilor Stafford?
None as well.
I've just obviously been by the site many times, but Sarah, is this you or is it?
It's me,
Sure.
yeah.
Sarah Prost has been qualified as an expert already by the town council, and based on her education and experience, has been accepted as an expert in the field of land use, planning, and development in the town of Fort Myers Beach. Are there any individuals who would like to be qualified as an expert witness on the behalf of the applicant at this time? You have been before? Okay. Becky, they've been qualified as experts before. They don't have to do it again, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Has the property owner applicant seen a copy of the agenda backup material from the staff? They're nodding their head yes. Okay, go ahead, Sarah.
Good morning, Sarah Probst with Community Development. The neighborhood company, on behalf of 7-Eleven Inc., the property owner for 841 Estero Boulevard, has applied for a commercial plan development rezoning to redevelop the property on the corner of Lagoon Street and Estero Boulevard with a convenience store. The downtown zoning district was the site, or this downtown zoning district property was the site of a 7-Eleven prior to Hurricane Ian. A convenience store is allowed by right in the downtown zoning district. However, the request requires several deviations from the land development code for the site design, and therefore the applicant has proposed a CPD, commercial plan development. The proposed development requires several deviations. The first deviation is from LDC Section 34706D, which requires that when properties are fronting on Estero Boulevard, existing driveway and parking spaces shall be relocated from Estero Boulevard to the secondary street, and new driveways shall connect only to the secondary street, except where these requirements would prohibit all reasonable access to the property. The deviation would allow driveways connecting to Estero Boulevard and Lagoon Street. Deviation from Section 10-285 along Estero Boulevard and Lagoon Street. The deviation would allow driveway separation along Estero Boulevard to be a minimum of approximately 80 feet and a minimum of approximately 60 feet along Lagoon Street. A deviation from the vehicle access separation to allow parking to be located primarily fronting on Estero Boulevard. A deviation from 34-2020D to I-1, which requires a minimum of 4 spaces per 1,000 square feet of total floor area, or 14 parking spaces for this site, which is 3,500 square feet, to allow for a reduction of 5 parking spaces to allow 8 parking spaces. The proposed development requests should be evaluated according to 34-85B and C, and 34-216 of the LDC. The deviations must be approved, modified, or rejected per findings in Section 34-216-4. Staff's application of these evaluative codes can be found in your staff report. At the LPA hearing, the LPA recommended approval of this request unanimously. Staff is available for any questions, and the applicant is also here.
Okay, questions for Sarah?
None.
No? Vice Mayor?
None at this time.
Councilor King?
None.
I don't have any at this time either. All right. Who's going to proceed with the, come on up?
I drew the straw. No. Good morning, Mayor, the councilors. For the record, I'm Ken Galander with the Neighborhood Company representing 7-Eleven Inc. Here for our third opportunity to bring back a 7-Eleven convenience store through this rezoning. First off, I appreciate staff. I appreciate the staff report and recommendation of approval with conditions, and appreciate your time. I do have a full presentation to provide to you, but want to just to put on the record that we are again in agreement with the staff report, the conditions, reiterating that we have the LPA unanimous approval recommendation as well. We have submittal documents on the record, in the public record as well, that have been revised and updated. And just, we are consistent with the comprehensive plan, land development code, the criteria laid out before us. So I'd be happy to go through the full presentation or hit on some key points. I'll leave that up to you as how you want to proceed, because I know you've got a full agenda as usual.
Is there anyone, I'm okay with an abbreviated version if the rest of the council is. I'm sure we all watched the LPA hearing. If, John, are you all right with that?
Yes.
I saw the LPA hearing as well, Ken, and I think in the interest of time, just the highlights, and also people I think would be interested in also the construction timeline and when you hope to be open.
Gotcha.
If you could
I'll
just,
hit on.
yeah, just go through, the design, the site design and the pictures, I think, so people can get an understanding.
Jim's going to be your first customer.
Very good.
I have one a little closer to me already, so yeah.
Might be me. My front yard.
Okay.
Oh, well, hopefully you're agreeable to this.
They're looking at me right
Yeah, right.
Agreeables and underestimating his
So,
desire for this. Yeah.
What we have before you is the updated and current master concept plan, recognizing we have Estero Boulevard, and it's at the corner of Estero and Lagoon. You can see the orientation. It is very consistent with what was pre-existing.
Again, for
prior-
somebody who's watching this, is like right across the street from Lynn Hall Park, correct?
Yes, correct. So the orientation of the building is a setback, and the main criteria of why we had to manipulate, and we tried every which way, is due to the flood zone location. So the V flood zone, you can see the yellow line right there. That is the delineation between the V zone and the AE zone. So if it was forward of that and meeting those code requirements, it would be an elevated structure, not as convenient and appropriate for that type of use. So luckily through the CPD process, we can request that deviation for these location and flexibility requirements. Parking along the front, we also wanted to ensure that we had the proper pedestrian connectivity, because we know the location adjacent to the park, this more residential neighborhood and orientation and context, just allows for better pedestrian movement to this location. And 7-Eleven is concentrating on and understanding that this type of 7-Eleven has those kind of patrons, so they're focusing on those kind of uses, or the supplies and the convenient elements for the pedestrians and the location to the park. We have the dumpster location off of Lagoon Street. We have orientated that to be away from, used to be closer to the right-of-way. We had to push it back so it was outside of the right-of-way. And we have the proper vehicular movement and management for the vehicles. These are the elevations, similar to the prior 7-Elevens that we've presented before you. The classic dumpster, and one of our dumpster deviations is to allow for that height, which is what we've added, and we had that discussion at the LPA that we thought that was appropriate to be consistent, and that's just an appropriate request. Here are the renderings and elevations of the 7-Eleven. This is looking from Estero Boulevard. This is at the corner of Estero and Lagoon Street, looking towards the corner of the building. With that, that's my best ability to abbreviate this.
What's your timeline, Ken, for construction?
Right. So as we have stated previously, we're looking at from hopefully approval at the second reading for this, approximately a 10 to 12 month process to go through the development order, establishing those permits, et cetera. And then from that, approximately maybe a 6 to 9 month construction period. So
just for educational purposes, when did you say 9 to 12 months just to get the permitting correct?
That's what we're estimating. Well,
Can you walk
because
us through that
that's-
just from an educational standpoint? 'Cause
Sure.
I'm always curious to see what folks are up against.
Yeah. Well, it's not necessarily up against any of what we're dealing with the town. It's on our side, we have to establish the application, work through the construction documents, making sure those are all code compliant, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a development order process that we have to prepare for and then submit. And then we go through a review process with the town staff. And then there's also, oh, sure. Yes. You can speak to the.
Good morning, Elizabeth Fountain with J.R. Evans Engineering. For the record, we also have to go through the DEP CCCL permitting process because of the coastal construction control line is located on the property. So that process in itself will take several months to go through.
Wow, sorry.
That's okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry for the town manager. It might be a little longer, but.
You're going to have to drive for your slurp.
So there's just the sequence of the proper permittings that we have to go through
Okay.
to reach that.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions for the applicant?
So if this gets approved, it's 3 down and 1 more to go?
We, for us, we are done with the 3.
Okay.
So the one at the far end, the southern end is open. So I'm sure you've all recognized that. And then there's also off island, the 7-Eleven just off island is now up and operational as well. So we know when there might be another opportunity for one coming into town, but hopefully we can be a part of that and work with you to get that one open too. So,
All right.
all right.
Sir.
And I'll apologize because I did leave off that last deviation. At the LPA, there was a discussion regarding having another deviation for the dumpster enclosure being 7 feet, no higher than 7 feet 6 inches.
And that would just be consistent with the other 2 that were already approved.
That's correct.
Okay. We'll now open up the public comment, unless anyone has any other questions for Sarah? No? Are there any members of the public who would wish to comment on this matter? If so, please come forward to the podium and identify yourself, provide your address, and whether you were sworn in. Anyone here for public comment on this public hearing? No? Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Are there any additional comments, rebuttal, or closing statements from the applicant?
No.
No? I will now close the public hearing and request a discussion or a motion from town council to approve with conditions, or deny with reasons, or a continuance to a time certain.
Mr. Mayor? Go ahead. No. I'll move Resolution 24-99 DCI 2023-0197 841 Estero Boulevard with the conditions of approval from the LPA.
I'll second.
Excuse me? There was a typo on the agenda. This is first reading of an ordinance. So it would be approval of the ordinance as presented and schedule a second reading and final adoption on May 17, 2024 at 9 a.m. June.
Yeah, that's
June 3rd. Okay.
My date is-
June 3rd at 9 a.m. And you could just say, so moved.
So moved, thank you.
I'll resecond that.
Okay, we got a motion by Counselor King, seconded by Counselor Safford. Any further discussion?
Help from Attorney Vos.
Yeah, with the assist from Becky. All right, Counselor King, how do you vote?
Aye.
Counselor Safford?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Adderholt?
Aye.
And Mayor Allers, I'm an aye as well.
Thank you very much.
Yep. See you on the 3rd. Next is resolution. Uh-oh. Next is a resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Fort Myers Beach, Florida, approving with conditions, or denying variance VAR 202-40084, requesting a variance from LDC 34-1174, subsection B, to allow a pickleball court closer to street than the principal building in the RS zoning district for the property located at 6140 Court Street, providing for clarifications as necessary, providing for conflicts of law, Scrivener's errors, severability, and providing for an effective date. If there is any town council member has any ex parte communication to disclose, please let us know the subject disclosed or discussed, and identity of the person, group, or entity with whom the communication took place, any correspondence that you received, or observations made of the site. Counselor King?
Just the 2 emails that were forwarded us this morning.
Vice Mayor Adderholt?
Same situation.
I am in the same situation, Counselor.
Equally.
Okay.
Excuse me.
Jason Smalley has been qualified as an expert already by this town council, and based on his education and experience, has been accepted as an expert in the field of land use, planning, and development in the town of Fort Myers Beach. Are there any other individuals who would like to be qualified as an expert witness on behalf of the applicant at this time? Seeing none, has the property owner applicant seen a copy of the agenda backup materials from staff? Yes, they have. Okay. Go ahead, Jason.
Good morning, councilors, staff. My name is Jason Smalley. I'm with your Planning and Zoning Department. As was mentioned previously by the mayor, the request today before you is in regards to 6140 Court Street. The applicant requires a variance simply because the structure itself is forward of the primary structure. The proposed layout of the structure, i.e. the pickleball court, will meet side setbacks and front street setbacks. So again, the request today is simply because it is forward of the home. The applicant and their representative are here, and as you mentioned earlier, since the LPA meeting, we have received 2 letters of concern regarding the project. In general, they were concerned with noise and other nuisances that might be brought by approval of the project. The LPA had recommended approval, a unanimous approval for this project, and staff is here for any questions that you may have.
Questions for Jason? Vice Mayor?
Jason, I don't expect you to know the answer to this because I'm struggling myself. One of the letters of objection or emails of objection is from 60 Flamingo. I'm trying to get a sense of the proximity of 60 Flamingo to the applicant's location. Maybe they'll have a comment on that. And I think the other email of objection does not have an address. Just trying to understand where folks are and where they live and how close they are to the neighborhood. So certainly we can defer to the applicant on this, but I didn't know if you had a chance to look at that.
I believe we looked at it earlier this morning. We would characterize both letters being within a couple blocks of the proposed lot.
Couple blocks?
One is all across the street, one house over. One is...
Across the street meaning Estero?
No, across Court Street.
Okay.
One house, so it's on the corner of Flamingo and Court Street.
Okay.
And then the other one is on the corner of Shelby and Flamingo.
Thank you.
Jason, before you run off, just to kind of piggyback on the question of what is the buffer that they're going to have? If you can just explain that, if they're listening, they can hear.
So the applicant has taken the initiative to present a landscaping plan. That landscaping plan is obviously going to be much more than is minimally required. So there will be some buffer from a landscape material that will help to buffer any sounds coming off of that. Aside from that, it's going to be just distance to the neighbor's property that's going to dissipate any of that sound.
Okay. Thank you, Jason.
You're welcome.
Would the applicant please come up and...
While the applicant's coming up, Sarah, I don't know if you're looking at these addresses as well, while they're presenting, if you could give us a little bit more, a better sense of the distance.
Distance from corner to corner is 100 feet approximately for one, and the other one is approximately 200
feet.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Kara?
Good morning, Kara Stewart, for the record. I'm here representing the owners of 6140 Court Street, Mr. and Mrs. Kledzik. They are here as well in the audience. It's a relatively simple request, and unfortunately, the design in the beginning had placed the structure forward closer to the Gulf, right adjacent to the 78 line. It's only recently that they've decided they'd like to add a pickleball court. The property is redesigned currently with a very enhancing landscape plan around the entire court, between the side yard, the front of Estero, and then again on the other adjacent side. The comments from the neighbors, we just were made aware of them right now as well. We had not known that anyone was of any concern, and it just so happens that when I first looked at it as well, I thought, oh, the noise, that's a common comment that people have. In this instance, it is no bearing on this application. Those, the use of a pickleball court, to further clarify, is permitted by right, and it's just that we're in front of our single family. If we had placed it behind it, there is no issue. The applicant is also in agreement to comply with the noise ordinance and will adhere to the requirements of that. So we're here if there's any questions or any comments, anything we can help clarify.
Kara, then you would be okay if staff added that as one of the conditions?
I believe there was something stated at LPA as far as the noise ordinance goes.
Yeah, I
but
don't
that's,
see it in there,
If
but-
if we need that in there, that's not a problem. It goes without saying. Everyone has to comply with it, so.
And Jason said that the landscaping is going to be more enhanced than what would be required by right. Could you just
Correct.
kind of go into what that, is it going to be full-grown vegetation that goes in, or is it something that's going to have to grow into size?
Some of the plantings on the landscaping plan are called for higher than, 6 inches. They're 18 inches. I can probably ask the owner if they have a clearer definition on that. But when we look at the plan, there's staggered plantings, and the plantings that get planted will be, some of them are higher than others.
Okay. Any other questions for Kara?
Kara and Becky, could you comment again on what you just said about having a pickleball court by right versus needing a variance?
Correct. The actual use of a pickleball court on this property is allowed in general. If our structure, if our single family had been placed further towards Court Street and we had the room to locate it behind the principal structure, we wouldn't be here today. So the use of the pickleball court is allowed by right, no different than someone having a swimming pool, an activity in their swimming pool, somebody playing basketball on their basketball court in their front yard. It's no different.
Becky, I just want additional comment on that, Kara, or Becky, because you see national publications like the Wall Street Journal talking about this pickleball noise debate all over the country. Are you in concurrence with Kara's assessment of that, of the concept of having a pickleball court by right, assuming it's appropriately zoned?
Could Sarah address this? I think she probably would know better. Thank you.
Yeah, we would consider this a residential accessory structure unless they were allowing people to pay and utilize their court as like a public facility. So this is considered private residential accessory use.
Kara, just to try to give some comfort to neighbors, I'll just give an example where we've now moved back into Bay Beach Lane and EBIA, the old golf course now has pickleball courts, and they're pretty far away from everything. But there are a number of folks in the condos who are concerned about the noise that's currently going on right now, and it's a little bit of a challenge, even though the pickleball courts, distance-wise, are pretty good far distance away. I wonder if the applicant would be willing, and I watched them during the LPA hearing. They seem like nice people and they care about their neighbors. Could we put some hours on this pickleball court so it's to give them some comfort that this is going to be going on early in the morning or in the evening? Or do we have the ability to do that?
Is lighting proposed?
There's no lighting
I know
proposed.
there's no lighting.
Right.
I remember that from the LPA hearing. But I just, from an hour standpoint, sometimes the sun gets up pretty early in the morning, and people want to hear. I know there's roosters in Key West, but to wake up to pickleball in the morning at 7 o'clock in the morning might be a lot for a neighbor. I'm just, again, in the interest of comity with their neighbors, and maybe the applicant would want to comment on it, if they would be willing to kind of at least give some peace to their neighbors by putting some kind of a restriction on it. Because when this went through the LPA, I thought, well, this is great. And obviously all the neighbors are cool. And if the neighbors are good, I'm good. But if you got a couple of neighbors who are worried, I just trying to give them some peace, try to find a middle ground here.
I won't speak for the owner. I'll ask them to come up in response to that. But what I will say is that you do have a noise ordinance already in place, which really would accommodate and keep you consistent with the rest of the other residential uses that people have on their properties. So I'm not sure if adding an additional hour restriction is something that they will want to do, but we'll ask them. But again, it's no different than any other accessory use.
It's different in the sense that you're asking for special consideration here this morning, right?
forward of the principal structure, which if we look at that, the other, what's the word I'm looking for? Consideration is that in that location, for the immediate neighbors, they're actually, all the neighbors are much forward also. Everybody's homes are being constructed along the 78 line. This pickleball court is way forward of that, which you would think that would be the most affected neighbors are those right adjacent to them. And the location of it in this place right now will actually enhance that separation. As far as the neighbor around the corner, we'll ask the owner. Again, I'm just personally a little hesitant to say that, so.
Okay.
Could I mention that I
Yes, please.
looked up our noise ordinance, and the two classifications of time relating to noise are from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. And then the really low decibel level is from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. So
I'll let the applicant speak. Maybe you have a kinder and gentler approach to this whole thing.
Probably not, but I'll try. I'm Kerry Kledzik. My wife Laura and I own the property. I'm not going to play before 7 in the morning, I guarantee you. It's purely recreational. It's our family home. It's our forever home. We want to keep the family together, the kids coming down to see us. We want to give them every excuse in the world to come spend time on FMB with us. When we check our maps on these two contentions, I'm not sure they're anywhere near our property. One we're fairly certain is a mile down in Estero Cove. Some friends of ours know that person. And if they're in that condo complex, I'm not sure they should have any input on this decision. They might just be complainers. Maybe they do. I don't know. If we would do whatever we have to do to get this court put in legally. So, if we need to make it some kind of structured hours, and that's the deal breaker, we'll certainly do it. We're not loud. We're not a loud group. We could have 10 guys out shooting baskets in the driveway at 8 in the morning, and that would be fully legal. So I think people are maybe just casting stones, and there's only two, and they're not our immediate neighbors. So we could have brought a lot of support from people if we knew there was any contention, but you didn't get it till this morning, so we were blindsided by it. But we don't understand the issue. It's not a loud sport.
So, Vice Mayor,
Go ahead.
I was just, you brought up maybe a different time. You seem like you're amenable to a different time frame between the 7 and 10. Do you have any recommendation? I see what you're saying about trying to alleviate maybe, I don't know if it's a morning thing or an afternoon thing that they would be concerned with the noise, but I'll let you.
Yeah, it's a tough one in the sense that, when I watched the LP hearing, obviously, you're going through the process, fully transparent. This came just this morning, puts everybody in a tough spot. But put yourself in our shoes. We're just trying to make sure everybody gets heard, trying to find a middle ground here, trying to keep everybody happy. It's always hard to do. I play pickleball, not very successfusly. The mayor much better than I do. But the
I don't play tennis very well either.
well, that's a debate that we can have later. Just trying to figure out how to try to demonstrate that we're taking the concerns of these neighbors seriously, and certainly again at the LPA there was no remonstrators, but again word travels after sometimes people watch the LPA hearing and then they'll hear of the issue. Just seeing if you could help us help you. I don't have an answer. I'm a libertarian by nature, but you are potentially infringing on someone else's rights as well. So that's why I'm trying to find that. See if there's a middle ground there. Just thinking out loud.
What if I made a suggestion? You said you're not going to be playing at 7. What if to help alleviate some of it, would like 8 to 8 be a fair?
I think that I'm Laura Kledzik. Hi. I think that sounds fair, and I think it's also goes along with what the actual noise ordinance already is. And at the last meeting, we did have supporters there that we didn't even know that were our neighbors. That they introduced them to us afterwards. They're like, we came to support you guys, and they live in Coquina, right behind us, so like closer than these other people that are even commenting, and we had never even met them before. So we definitely would have support from closer people and people that don't even know us, and our next door neighbor. She was in full support of it. We didn't ask her to come today or anything, but.
So you'd be in support of the 8 to 8. And I only said those numbers because it's dark usually at 8 o'clock. And you're not getting lights. So, I mean, if you're okay with it, and that maybe gives a little bit more, I don't know what word I want to use, but for the neighbors that did write in at the last minute this morning.
Yeah.
Is that something that
8 a.m. is perfectly fine. I mean, I don't think it's pretty dark at 8 p.m. Like sunset right now is 8:10. So I think 9 p.m. would be perfect for us, which is kind of like what the music ordinance was for like pinchers or outrigger. Yeah. So I think 8 to 9 p.m., just daylight hours and not before 8 a.m. is, I think, a more fair. And part of it goes to, you don't want to be playing at 3 p.m. in the afternoon. It's so hot out. Like no one wants to play. You go by any pickleball court, there is no one on the courts in the afternoon. It's like it's when the weather is more tolerable. So that's kind of this is our daughter Taylor, who loves pickleball. She goes to the University of Tampa and plays there, with our friends and everything. And she's here visiting us. So that's
8 to 8 or 8 to 9.
We think that's fair. Yeah.
Okay. I 9 o'clock. I mean, I think that's fair too.
Thank you.
It's an hour. I mean, you're not going to have lights anyways. You're not playing
That we
at 9:30,
did not propose
right?
lights. Nope.
We appreciate your
Who knows? Maybe they
Glow in the dark pickleball.
Glow in the dark.
And it was mentioned in the other meeting, we're not renting our property. We're not going to have like tournaments where people are coming to pay. It's going to be like our family and just like our relatives that come visit us. That's what our proposal is, or
it's not a rental property.
No.
Well, whenever you guys are ready to take on the Hoosier Slicer and the Minnesota Slicer.
You'll be sorry you threw that out.
Yeah. As soon as I started talking, I was. All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Is everyone in support of that condition of the 9?
I think it's ridiculous to have that. Quite honestly.
I think I agree with you, Councilor Safford. I mean, they're already doing the landscaping. They're already, one of the conditions of approval was to comply with the noise ordinance, so.
How are you going to enforce this? That's just silly.
Well, it'd be the
Jim,
same.
You're a libertarian. I mean, it's sunrise to sunset. I mean, come on. You and I play tennis at 7 in the morning.
Listen, I know this is a debate that's raging around the country right now on the pickleball front. I want them to, they seem like lovely people. I want them to, we had these came this morning. We're just trying to find comity, peace in the valley, if you will. It's not easy, but if you guys, if you object to that, that's fine.
I think sunrise to sunset, it's perfectly fine.
And that in essence will be the time, since they're not going to have lights anyways.
Well, why put 8 o'clock? I mean,
It just seemed like
they start playing at 7:45 and we're going to call code enforcement? I mean, come on, we have bigger things to do here.
I'm just trying to find a middle ground, but if the council feels strongly about sticking with the way it is, that's fine too.
I'm certainly not going to die on the vine over an hour or two.
I'm not either.
But to answer your question, Councilor Safford, the code enforcement would be the same no matter what time of day it is, whether it's at 7, 8, 9, or 10. They still do the same thing. So
right.
How you're going to enforce it would be the same way you'd enforce it. But again, I'm not going to die on the vine over an hour either way. But you want to play in the dark with the bugs? I guess the neighbor will be. Yeah.
God bless you guys, but you guys. They should be able to play during the daylight. I mean, that's my opinion.
Any other questions for the applicant? Okay. Public comment. Are there any members of the public who wish to comment on this matter? If so, please come forward to the podium and identify yourself, provide your address, and whether you were sworn in. Anyone that would like to speak in public comment? Seeing none, we'll close it. Bring it back. Are there any additional comments, rebuttal, or closing statements from the applicant? Nope. Okay. I'll now close the public hearing and request a discussion or a motion from town council to approve with conditions, deny with reasons, or a continuance to a time certain.
Mayor, I'll move Resolution 24-96, VAR 20240084, 6140 Court Street, only with the conditions of approval from the LPA.
I'll second.
Got a motion by Counselor King, seconded by Counselor Safford. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Oh, sorry, roll call, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Counselor King?
Aye.
Counselor Safford?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Adderholt?
Aye.
Mayor Allers is an aye. Motion carries unanimously. Next is item C, resolution. It's a resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Fort Myers Beach, Florida, approving with conditions, denying special exception SEZ 202-40069 to allow for the replacement/repair of a sun deck, pool patio, retaining wall, and a fence in the environmental critical EZ zoning district for the property located at 830 Estero Boulevard, providing for Scrivener's errors, severability, and an effective date. If any town council member has any ex parte communication to disclose, please let us know the subject discussed and the identity of the person, group, or entity with whom the communication took place, and any correspondence that you received or observations made of the site. Counselor Safford?
I do not.
I do not either. Vice Mayor Adderholt?
None.
Counselor King?
None that I recall.
Okay. Jason Smalley has been qualified as an expert already by this town council, and based on his education and experience has been accepted as an expert in field of land use, planning, and development in the town of Fort Myers Beach. Are there any other individuals who would like to be qualified as an expert witness on behalf of the applicant at this time? Seeing none, go ahead, Jason.
Good morning, councilors. Again, my name is Jason Smalley. I'm with your Planning and Zoning Department. As was mentioned before, the Edison Beach condominium is applying for a special exception. They're located at 830 Estero Boulevard. They're requesting a special exception to rebuild a few different aspects of their outside pool deck. The CCCL line, the 1978 line, is the reason that we're here today. Some of the structures, these are accessory in nature, do extend seaward, so towards the Gulf from this 1978 line. As best we can tell, there's about 10 feet between the line and the edge of their pool deck. What they're requesting here is to replace what was there before. So we're talking about a sun deck, pool patio, a retaining wall, and a fence that would run along the back edge of the property. So that's what they're hoping to replace. I just wanted to make the point that in the original iteration of the staff report, it was mentioned that they were looking to replace some foot showers and shower structures. Through the LPA and through discussions with staff, we believe that those are actually already landward of the 1978 line. So what's being requested today is the deck, pool patio, retaining wall, and the fence. So it would not be inclusive of excuse me, foot or normal showers. The staff is here for any questions that you may have, and I believe the applicant's representative is here as well.
Okay. Questions for Jason?
No.
No? Vice Mayor Earl, Counselor King?
None.
I don't have any this time either. Thanks, Jason. Would the applicant like to come up and? Good morning.
Good morning. Hi, everyone. My name is Matthew Burt. I'm the general manager of the Edison Beach House at 830 Estero Boulevard. We're just trying to repair back to where we were after the hurricane. Right now, we're almost there. We've got the building almost done. We're just waiting to get the pool finished. It's a repair on the pool because the pool shell did make it. The pool is holding water. It's just we need to repipe it, get the deck around it and all that in the sun deck, and then, of course, get the fence around it to make it safe and secure. So really, that's all we're asking is just to kind of get back to where we were. We don't want to add anything extra or nothing like that. We just want to repair what was there.
Okay. Any questions for Matthew? John?
None.
Jim?
Nothing. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I do not have any either.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for all you've done. Thank you.
I'll now open it up for public comment. Are there any members of the public who would wish to comment on this matter? If so, please come forward to the podium and identify yourself, provide your address, and whether you were sworn in. Is there any public comment? Seeing none. Are there any additional comments, rebuttal, or closing statements from the applicant? Nope. Okay. I will now close the public hearing and request a discussion or a motion from the town council to approve with conditions, or deny with reasons, or a continuance to a time certain.
Mayor, I'll move Resolution 24-97, SEZ 20240069, 830 Estero Boulevard.
I'll second.
Got a motion by Counselor King, seconded by Counselor Safford. Any further discussion? Counselor King?
Aye.
Counselor Safford?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Adderholt?
Aye.
And I am an aye as well. Congratulations. Looking forward to seeing you get that open. The next item is D. Becky, do I have to read the whole thing, even though we haven't received any objections?
Yes, I would read the whole thing and then ask if somebody
Okay.
is in the audience.
Got it. Next is Resolution 24-98, variance 202-40088, 614 Estero Boulevard, a resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Fort Myers Beach, Florida, approving with conditions, or denying variance 202-40088, a request for two variances from the LDC Table 34-3 to decrease required street setback by 17 feet 6 inches from the required 25 feet and to reduce the rear setback by 12 feet 1 inch from the required 20 feet in the RM zoning district for the property located at 614 Estero Boulevard and providing for an effective date. As to date, we have not received any objections since the LPA hearing. Is there anyone here that would like to speak in public comment? Seeing none? Where do we go from here, man?
Okay, you could just put the written information that's in the agenda in the record,
Okay.
and then you could have a motion to approve and go forward from there.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I'll move that we put the information that was in the agenda into the official record, and then move approval of Resolution 24-98.
Okay, we've got a motion by Vice Mayor Adderholt. I'll second it. Any further discussion? Vice Mayor Adderholt?
Aye.
Mayor Eilers is an aye. Counselor Safford?
Aye.
Counselor King?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Next is our administrative agenda. It is, there's nothing really to read in, is there?
Just announce this is the time for the bid protest
Okay.
and ask the protester to make a presentation.
Okay, this is the time for the bid protest hearing, ITB-24-03-EN, Estero Island Beach Nourishment and Hurricane Recovery Project. Would the protester like to come up and?
Okay, great. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. My name is John Sullivan with Callan Marine. I'm from Galveston, Texas. So pass this out real quick.
Thank you.
I like that.
Thanks, sir.
Thank
Very fancy.
Speak the bars.
Thank you, sir.
I don't.
Okay, all right, great. Well, good morning. Thank you all for listening to my presentation. So, as I mentioned, I'm with Callan Marine. I'm president of Callan Marine and one of the owners. We are a dredger mainly on the Gulf Coast, but we do dredge on the East Coast as well. We were the number 2 bidder on this project, and we're number 2 bidders quite often on projects. So, it's not crying over spilled milk by any means. But if you'll look in your package that we have there, I kind of put in the presentation. You can click through, and I can click through here as well if you'd like. But what we really wanted to highlight here, and we spoke with Ms. Voss and Ms. Baker the other day about kind of our view of this project versus maybe what the low bidder was, which was Aetna. So first of all, I want to establish we have a lot of respect for Aetna and Cavache. That's Aetna Cavache dredging. We know them well. They actually, one of our sister companies is partners with Aetna on a couple projects. So no bad feelings at all with them. They're very qualified for what they do. We view this as an offshore dredging project. And the reason why we say that is the borrow area is 1.5 miles off of the beach. If you look at the bidders on the project, there was only one inland dredger that really bid the project. Everybody else that bid the projects were all offshore dredgers. Callan Marine, Weeks Marine, Great Lakes, and there was one more that I think did not have a qualified bid. And I think actually Great Lakes may have been, for whatever reason, was not qualified either, or they're not qualified. They didn't have a full package. So the numbers are quite different. Aetna at 22 million. We were at just over 37 million. Weeks Marine, which who is the largest dredger in the country, was at 38 million. What makes us all different really is we are an ocean-going. We have basically 3 ocean-going dredges that can dredge offshore, that can sit in high winds, high seas. We're fully crewed all the time. It is like I said, an ABS class vessel. Technically, Aetna with their dredge can, and I say this technically, they can, legally they can sit in that spot 1.5 miles offshore. There's a technical side, and there's really should you or should you not. As you all know, by the way, I'm from Galveston, Texas, so I know exactly what you're going through with Hurricane Ian. You need your beaches open. I mean, this is Fort Myers Beach, just like we are Galveston Island. And the lifeblood of our community is actually getting the beaches back up and going quickly. So we understand what you're going through. And we understand it's expensive and it takes a lot of money. But our argument here is that not that Aetna is not a qualified dredger. We don't think they're qualified. We don't think they have the equipment to safely, both for their people and environmentally, do that project. Secondly, and I kind of go through that a little bit here. The first slide, it just shows the General MacArthur, which is a dredge that we have put on this project. She is actually the largest cutterhead suction dredge in the country. She's a 32-inch dredge and it has 24,000 horsepower. So there's a little depiction there that kind of shows the General MacArthur compared to Aetna's dredge. That's right in front of the General MacArthur. As you can see, and we're not trying to belittle Aetna's dredge. We have little dredges too. It's just not an offshore dredge. We are an offshore dredge. If you go to the next page, this describes the Katie John, which is Aetna's dredge. We have one, actually we have 3 that are very similar to the Katie John. This one is actually an Ellicott dredge, which is the manufacturer. We have some that are similar that are called DSC dredges, but those are all inland, what we call brown water dredges. They sit inside the coastal zone. Those dredges usually have 1.5 to 2 foot of freeboard. So they can handle chop, but whenever you start getting any swells, or if you get some big waves with winds, you can easily overcome that dredge and swamp it. And as y'all know, being coastal folks, the weather can turn very, very fast, very, very quickly. And as a dredger, you want to keep dredging as long as you can, and then all of a sudden, when it's past the time to safely leave, you've already lost it. And so that's our big concern with Aetna's dredge. I also, and I'm not going to read y'all the presentation because y'all can.
Could you just for educational purposes? So how long does it take for the smaller dredging device here we're looking at? How long does it take to get out of harm's way if they see bad weather coming?
Sure. So they are most dredges, and I actually saw their response. They have what's called a ball and bell, which is basically a quick connect on the back of the dredge. We have those as well. Those are pretty easy to come off. You can when the weather starts getting bad, you can basically unhook from your pipeline, get your dredge tenders, and pull your anchors, pull your spuds, and you can move in pretty darn quick if the weather hasn't turned too quick. But most little dredge tenders that are with dredge or and we have the little dredge tenders that we have. We probably have 14 or 15 of them that are the size that Aetna has. They only have 1 foot to 1.5 foot of freeboard too. So when they start to get swamped, they get swamped, and you can lose them and sink them very, very quickly. So by the time that it's time to get the dredge out of the way, in many cases, the dredge tenders, the little tugboats that are with them, it's too late to get them out of the way too.
Is the inference you're making that they wouldn't be able to escape in time for a hurricane type storm, or just regular choppy waters, they'd be vulnerable as well?
I would say both.
Both?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
For sure. With a hurricane, usually we can see them coming. But a really good, strong afternoon squall can really get pretty hairy. And, we would never, as our company, we wouldn't put our men or women, but we wouldn't put our guys on a smaller vessel where this RO area is. We just wouldn't. It's not safe, in our opinion.
Are there state and federal regulators who determine whether a job is safe for the appropriate equipment, or is that just your own professional opinion? Is there some sort of a regulatory entity that makes an official either inspection or approval that says you can do a job like this based upon the equipment you have, or is it just sort of professional best practices within the industry?
It's professional best practices. If you actually look at the rules, they can be out there. I mean, from a Coast Guard standpoint, you can actually bring a vessel that's not ABS certified coastwise, and this would be in the coastwise zone. So they absolutely can be there and they can work there. Is it the right thing to do?
So your contention is that they're not violating any particular regulatory statute or code. It's just they're potentially violating best practices. Is that what you asked?
That's exactly right. Yes,
okay.
Sir. Yeah, I do not think that they are breaking any rules at all. So we did throw in a couple of the codes that we all try to follow as dredgers or mariners about best practices on seaworthy vessels for the job. And so that's where we kind of think this is a little bit gray because we don't believe that vessel is seaworthy for that job. It's seaworthy, no doubt, but is it seaworthy for that job? And that's where we say that it's not, in our opinion. So I have a couple of slides there. The next thing I just want to point out here is this job was bid twice. One in January 24, Callan bid it. We were 36.2. Weeks bid it 30. They were the low bidder at 36.032. Great Lakes and Otna did not bid that time. It was over budget, and the timing was a little tough too because to get a dredge there, it was almost a really quick trigger. It was rebid again in March 2024, and these are the results here. Callan came in at 37.1. Weeks 38.7. Great Lakes was at 50 million, but I think they actually got their bid pulled because maybe something wasn't complete. And then of course the low bidder was Otna at 21.7. The reason we throw this out there to show you is if you look at the different vessels that were planning to come to this, whether it be Weeks Marine, Great Lakes, or Callan, compared to Otna, you can see there's something very, very different. We really are looking the big dredgers. So there's, I would say, Callan, Great Lakes, and Weeks are the biggest competitors on the Gulf Coast. Clearly, in Great Lakes and Weeks are the largest dredgers in the country. Callan's one of the top 5. If you look, all the big guys clearly looked at it one way. One of the small dredgers didn't. And so when you look and say, which one doesn't look like the other, it's Otna, and it's because, they bid with an inland dredge in an offshore environment. So I just want to point that out there.
Just a quick question. The concept of using an inland dredge offshore, which is what you're alleging is happening under the successful bidder, has it happened? Have there been other instances in Southwest Florida where an inland dredge has worked offshore successfully?
Oh yes, many times. And actually, in fact, this project was done by a company by the name of Florida Dredge and Dock, or maybe I don't know. I think it was Florida Dredge and Dock.
Is it your contention that they were just lucky?
Yes.
Okay.
It is my contention. Yes.
Right.
Yes, sir. Sure do. And I will tell you, I mean, we just finished dredging an inlet with one of our bigger inland dredges. And it was, I can tell you, I will never do that again. And this was a couple months ago. Absolutely legal to do it, but even getting into the jetty area, we really came close to putting the dredge on the rocks. And that was a much bigger dredge than even what Otna's bidding. That's one of our, it's called the General Marshall. So The next thing I want to point out, this job had, and this is kind of the responsiveness to the bid. The bid called this project to be done in 180 days. It gave a little bit of a grace period to 195 days. If you look at all the big dredgers, we brought dredges that could complete this project within that time frame. As example, Callan, we can complete it in 90 days. So we just brought a big dredge for what the bid requirements asked for. Ahtna gave a list of some of their past projects and their production. They also listed their production. If you see here, this is the table that they produced. On average, they did 2,300 cubic yards an hour, or I'm sorry, 2,300 cubic yards a day on these projects. Every project's different. Totally get that. But on their own production on this bid, they said that they could do, I believe it was 350 cubic yards a day, an hour, I'm sorry. And so on their best case with their production, their best case, they would complete this job in 292 days. So that is 180 days, 195 days is what the bid requirements called for. There are liquidated damages of $3,750 a day. So they would be subject to that. On a $22 million job, does that really affect that big of a that much impact? Not really. It'd be, maybe $400,000 in LDs. They may have quoted that in there, but the bid requirement said 195 days. We responded to the bid requirements. In Ahtna's own documents, they did not. So they clearly said that it'll be done much later after the bid is due. So we don't believe it's even a responsive bid. So there's responsible, meaning do you have the right vessel? There's responsive, did you respond to the bid requirements? And we don't believe they did. So now using their averages, if you look at the next sheet, worst case, and this is without major weather impacts, they may be done in 405 days, so over a year. And so I brought up, we all know the lifeblood of a beach community is their beach. Well, you need a beach. You don't need a pipeline running down the beach with booster pumps and all those things screaming at night. We just talked about pickleball. Ahtna's going to have booster pumps sitting on the beach to get this material down the beach. So that's going to be loud. There's going to be trucks running up and down. For what Callan and Weeks and Great Lakes, what we would have done, we have no booster pumps on our equipment. The dredges have the capabilities to get it all the way to the beach on their own with no boosters. So we'll have shore equipment, spreading the sand out, but we'll be marching down the beach pretty darn quick. So I want to go ahead and give you all on this sheet, again, best case Ahtna, 292 days, they're done by April. Worst case, July. Callan, General MacArthur is over in Grand Isle, Louisiana right now. She has 1 million yards to put on the beach there. We have changed our schedule around a little bit that we would be ready to move from there directly to here. We would most likely be started pumping by 9/1, and we would be done by the end of November. So there's a talk, and I know that if there's an emergency, that's why you're saying that you can go with, or that's why, the emergency is to get it done by hurricane season. Well, to get it done by hurricane season, you don't want to use Ahtna, you want to use us. And so we would be done by the end of November. And again, no booster pumps. Our pipeline would be up and down the beach in 90 days. We'd be wrapping it up pretty quickly. So that hopefully would not impact your tourism and turtles and things like that. We would be in and out of here. Again, also remember, Ahtna has to have several booster pumps. We don't have to have any, and so we'll get it to the beach in one shot.
John, you'd made a comment about there was a daily fee if you go past the 180 days, and you'd made reference that now that there's no way that they could make that 180 days, but that same fee would apply to you. So is it fair to say that you could tell us 90 days, but you could easily go 250 days and you would still be subject to the same thing. So you're just basically saying that there's no way they can make the 180 days, therefore that fee is going to be imposed on them. But you're claiming that you will have it done in 90 days and come nowhere near the 180 days required?
Right, yes, sir. That's right. I mean, we could have a major breakdown. We could have something that goes wrong, and we would be subject to LDs as well. The difference is we brought a piece of equipment that can complete it in the 195 days. They're bringing in a piece of equipment that they're already telling you they will not complete in 195 days. So that's why we're saying it's not even a responsive bid. So, but absolutely, we are subject to the same LDs. By the way, in the engineer, and we have all due respect for these folks, we work with them everywhere. The engineer that did the plans also gave their opinion letter, and I'm sure he'll speak to you here shortly, on the dredge production. His estimate is that Ahtna's dredge can do double what Ahtna is even claiming. And I'm here to tell you that somebody that owns 8 dredges that we dredge up and down the Gulf Coast, this dredge cannot do what the engineer is claiming. It cannot do it. The math is not going to work once you put that through all these pipelines and through all the boosters. It's just not going to, with this grain size of sand, it will not be able to do what the engineer is claiming.
John, have you gotten to this page here yet?
No, sir, but that's next.
That's next. Can I ask you a question on that page?
Sure.
So, a couple things. This is Ahtna's map here, or is this your map?
This map is, so if you look, there's pipeline route 1. So there's basically a northern part of the beach fill, and then there's a southern part. So pipeline route 1 is an improved pipeline route that we will all use. And we'll send the pipeline in, then at that point we'll run north, finish off the north section of the beach, and then we'll run south. Pipeline route 2 is what we would utilize to get to the southern tip of Fort Myers Beach.
So just for us lay folks out here, there's 2 pipes that will be utilized for north and south end of the island. And then is it these boosters that you're talking about that gets it to the mid-island, or do we truck that, or what happens?
So there is an option to truck, although that's not what Ahtna bid. They bid to pump everything just like we did. What we did on this map, this is showing what we expect if we were to run the production on Ahtna's dredge, which again, we have dredges like that, so I think we're pretty qualified to do that. What this is showing is at their best case, how far they will make it down the beach in that kind of a rough duration. So this is not us. We'd be in and out of here in 90 days. We'd have it all done. But this is what we estimate on this.
Can you paint a picture for somebody who might live along the beach, what they would experience under your proposal versus the Victoria's proposal? In the sense that you reference these boosters and the noise and you would need to spread the same. Just kind of walk us through as lay people what it's going to look like on the beach for folks as it gets renourished.
Sure. Yes, that's a good, very good question, actually. So we will, as our pipeline comes up, so we have a 32-inch pipe, so it's big, and it's about that big, big steel pipe. And then we will also have plastic, big HDPE plastic pipe. It will come up, go to the beach. We'll have a submerged line that will go all the way to the beach. That way boats can go over. They will all be marked. Once it gets to the beach, we'll go left or right, depending on the direction. At the end of the pipe, we will have bulldozers that are working 24 hours a day, just like Ahtna. We'll probably have 3 or 4 dozers working because we'll be pumping 20 to 30,000 cubic yards a day. And so there's a template on the beach that you're doing, and I can't recall exactly what it was, whether it be 100 cubic yards per linear foot or 200 yards per linear foot. As we fill the beach template as per the design, we will basically add pipe and keep going down. And we'll have bulldozers that will spread it out and then grade it all out.
Pipe separate from the pipeline route 1. In other words, the pipe will go along the beach?
That's correct.
Okay.
And so what we'll do is we'll build little ramps over our pipe so that way pedestrians can get back and forth. We'll have to have vehicular ramps in case, of emergencies and things like that. Ahtna will do the same thing. The difference is Ahtna's pipe will be about that big. Our pipe will be about that big. But we're going to be moving down the beach very quickly, and we'll have bulldozers and loaders. It's going to be inconvenient.
And just so I understand the physics of this, from pipeline Route 1 to Mid-Island, you're literally going to be piping into these other smaller pipes, or will you eventually have to move pipeline 1 closer to the Mid-Island?
No, sir. We will just end up adding pipe as we go down the beach.
And you can force that sand through, not only through pipeline 1 to the island, but then all along the beach, you could force that sand all the way through?
Right. We will do it without a booster pump.
Explain to us.
So a booster pump is basically, it's a pump halfway through, so you have the sand is being pushed, the sand and water is being pushed with the dredge itself. Once it slows down, the velocity slows down, the sand starts to settle down at the bottom of the pipe, and you basically need to boost it up again and get it moving.
And you can do it because you have a larger pipe and more power, or you don't need the booster?
Right, yes. We have on pump horsepower on our dredge, we have 16,000 pump horsepower on our dredge.
And the downside to the boost is just the noise, you say?
The noise,
Okay.
right. So they'll have land boosters, and we do it all the time. We just finished a job with one of our smaller dredges with 45,000 feet of pipe, and we had 3 boosters along the way. So it's done. I mean, it's a common occurrence, but they're loud, and they're on the beach.
Just again, we've got a lot of folks watching. You kind of give us an idea of what to expect. Just in your experience, given the size of this project, will people see a dramatic difference in the beach when this is done?
Meaning the beach condition?
Yes.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, this is a nice.
Describe what the difference would be from your perspective.
I think that the beach template, I don't have the plane. Well, I do have the planes. I think the beach template
It's a massive project. I don't know if folks fully appreciate.
It's a massive project.
How radical, how will the beach look different from your perspective as a professional?
The beach will probably be about 100 feet wider, I believe. And we'll ask the engineer. I've got the plans. I can pull it out right now and give you that answer. But it's putting another 1 million yards on the beach. So that's quite a bit of sand.
And the sand borrow site where the sand is coming from, you're of the opinion, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but that's high quality sand?
It is. The engineer, that's your engineer that designed the project, did vibrocore analysis of the sand and sand grabs. It's really high quality sand.
Very good. Thank you.
And that's this map shows where the borrow source is. And it's a permitted borrow source. It has to be taken from that area. We have a minimum depth that we have to bring it down to. And based on, it was surveyed November of 21. So we imagine it's probably changed a little bit. But November 21, there's about 1.3 million cubic yards in that borrow source. We're taking about 1 million yards out of there. So we're going to basically clean it out. And then, the good Lord will bring it back. That's the concept. And then finally, the last page here, taking our opinion aside, which I think we have, we're pretty strong on experience with Callan, but Kyle Johnson, who was with Great Lakes Dredge and Dock, who again is the largest public dredger in the country. He was there for 30 or 40 years. Kyle now has his own consulting firm. He looked at our numbers independently and verified that he agrees with our production rates. Again, he's an engineer. He's a dredge engineer, so he did this all of his life. He did small dredges. He did big dredges. He went and looked at our numbers the way we ran it. He ran them independently, and he also believes that from a production standpoint that we're right. Secondly, he also confirmed that he also would not put his people out there on a smaller vessel. So that's kind of a third party opinion. Again, we hired that third party opinion, but they do not work for Callan. So,
John, my last question for you is that we have a consultant that's been helping us with our renourishment project for some time now, Mike Poff, who's got decades of experience in this area. It's my understanding, and I'll let the process proceed this morning, but it's my understanding he's comfortable with the bidder that we've accepted. With his experience and a litany of projects in Southwest Florida, you just think he's got it wrong, or what? How do you wrestle with the fact that he's comfortable with where we're headed?
Well, respectfully, I do believe he has it wrong. Yes, sir. I think that the production that he put is double what even Otna says they can do. It's double what we've ever seen a dredge of that size do. And I just think that in practice, with guys on a vessel getting back and forth, with equipment breaking down, with this grain size of sand, I believe he has it wrong. And I say that with all due respect because I can't do what he does. But we are dredgers. We know this. And I would love to make that production. We'd make a lot more money. But I've never seen a dredge, and any of our people at Callan or Kyle Johnson has never seen a dredge do that. And I don't think you'll see it on this job. Not at all. So I kind of wanted to end with one last comment. I thought about this a lot. You know, if you had, to kind of put it a little bit into a lay person, if you had, you know, you needed a stent or you needed a bypass surgery, you know, there's a lot of people who go to medical school and they're doctors, and we call them doctors. But you're not going to go to your family practice, general practitioner, to operate on your heart. You're going to go to a heart surgeon. And because he's the most qualified, it doesn't matter what the cost is, right? He's qualified. He knows the heart. Maybe he can't tell you what a broken bone looks like, but you want to go to the best qualified firm to do what's most important for you. I would say for your beach, it's almost the same thing. And so you need your beach filled. You need your tourism back. Why not go to the best qualified firms that can do this safely and within the bid response? Finally, we do a lot of FEMA funded projects. Most of this work, so 10% is coming from Fort Myers Beach, 58% is coming from the DEP, almost 27% is coming from Lee County, and then 5.9% is coming from FEMA. I believe that, and we'd be happy to work, and there's also another 5.8 million that is coming up in the next budget for more beach nourishment for Fort Myers Beach. So even though you have a budget of 24 million to do this project, that doesn't mean you do it with a general practitioner, right? You want a heart surgeon to do your heart. I would say you need to go back to FEMA. You need to go back to the PA firm that's working for Lee County and Fort Myers Beach and request additional money because you want to do it right. You can't do it wrong, and you can't kill people. And I'm telling you, we've lost people, and it's not good. And we've never lost somebody like this because we stay safe. But you can lose people like this. And I would tell you that even though they fit in the budget, that doesn't mean you should do it. So I would say that at a minimum, if you, I would ask that you at least give it 2 weeks to maybe go back to DP, maybe go to Lee County, maybe go to the public assistance consultant that's working for the county and for the city, and see if there's a way to petition FEMA for more money or for DEP for more money to do the project right and to do it safely. I think the budget was wrong in the first place. Clearly, it's been bid twice, and all offshore dredgers are 35 million plus. The only inland dredger is the one that came in budget. And I would just tell you that I think the budget was wrong in the first place and that you really needed 35 plus million to do this job. So,
John, before you go, I just want to, since you talked about the money and in the percentage that you put out there, even in the best case scenario, if we could get FEMA and we could get the county, we can get everybody to decide to increase the amount of money. We all know how fast FEMA moves. And could that potential delay, even if they were to say yes, if we were to delay giving this contract to Aetna and moving forward with you, is it fair to say that because of the way FEMA operates, that the delay in getting that funding could be added to your 90 days that you'd say you'd be able to, I mean, is it going to push the project out to 250 days anyway? So the end result would be the same, even if we were to pay more money? And the second part of that question is, even at that 10%, that would be an additional $1.6 million to the taxpayers of Fort Myers Beach. So I'm just a little concerned if the delay in trying to get, if they even agree to do it, to pay more money and we could get all these entities to step up and do it, we would then have to get our taxpayers to be able to fund the other 1.6 million of that. And if the end result is the same, the job gets done. I understand your concern with safety. We certainly appreciate that. But if the end result is going to be the same, the beach gets done. I think you have said that they can do the job. It's not probably the safest way, and I'm not running their business, so I can't decide if it's safe or not for them. But I just want to make sure that if, however we decide we're going to go with this, that the end result isn't going to be the same, but cost our taxpayers $1.6 million more, and the finished duration time would be the same. And that's simply because that's out of your control. That would be FEMA and the county, if we could get them to obligate more money to this project. I'm just concerned that the end result would be the same.
Sure, and to speak to that, I would, I can't make money out of thin air, but I would say that at a minimum, maybe give it let's try really hard for 2 weeks. Go to DEP, go to Fish and Wildlife. We talked about turtles earlier. Everybody in Florida loves turtles, right? And they need an environment to lay their eggs. And she actually spoke to, hey, we're looking forward to nourishment so that we can have a beach back. So I think that you can reach to DEP, you can reach to FEMA, you can reach to Fish and Wildlife, certainly to Lee County, because as we know that a lot of people from Lee County, Fort Myers, comes to the beach. And so maybe they have additional funds. I would ask that at a minimum, it's not going to cost you that much time. Let's work for 2 weeks to see, and we'll make our calls that we can make. We'll do it with you and see if we can get you more money. I'm just saying that I think that the money that you had allocated before was too little, and that's because I think the estimate was wrong. So I would look for more sources and uses of the money, and maybe that's in Tallahassee. Maybe it's with Region 4. Maybe it's with NIFWIF, the fisheries. So now to get that money in 2 weeks, probably not. But if you got the process going, we're not going to be done until the end of November anyways. And so by then, there's a new budget that would come in, and potentially it'd be more money. Now, Callan, or anybody really, can't sign a contingent contract, meaning we'll pay you if we get the money. That's not an approved mechanism for governments. But if it was, hey, Callan will be done in November, but we can't pay you your final amount till February, would you be open to that? Sure, we would. But you can't say if we get paid. It's legally, you can say, well, hey, we're going to pay you in February when we get the funds, as long as it was approved. So.
Okay. Any other questions for John?
I don't know that I have a question, but I guess I'm trying to imagine in my mind how we go back to these folks and say, we don't have the right numbers to begin with because the number 2 bidder said we don't. I just don't see us doing it that way. How would you approach people to say the numbers were off for more money?
I think what I would do is exactly that way, just so we believe that we got the estimate wrong in the first place. That, this is really a $35+ million project, not a $22 million project, or 25 was the budget, 24, I believe. That it was just wrong. I mean, it happens all the time. Where you get bids in, and I'm sure y'all approve it all the time, where you get a bid to put in water lines, put in, build the new city hall, and it may come in over budget. Well, what do? You can't cut your way to being in budget. You can sometimes. In this case, you really can't. And so you just have to go and either find the money somewhere else or see if you can tighten up in some cases. But, we all know that inflation's gone crazy, and that, people blow budgets all the time. I'm sure most of the people rebuilding their homes on Fort Myers Beach right now, none of them are on budget because it's all costing more. So I would say you would do it just like you're building a new house yourself. So you just go back and say, look, we got to find
I think the difference would be, though, that you're sticking with that builder. You're not saying number 2 said we blew it.
Right. Back to my analogy, I think you decided to go with a heart surgeon for your heart surgery rather than a general practitioner for your heart surgery. And I think that's what no doubt Aetna's a dredger. They can pump material through a dredge. Is it the proper dredge for this job to finish within 195 days and to sit and borrow that material from the spot where we're supposed to borrow material from? I would say safely, it's not the right vessel. And then secondly, it's not a responsive bid because it can't be done in 180 days. I would tell you, or 195 days is the lanyard that they give. If you would have given us a bid duration of 360 days, we still would have brought an offshore dredge to do this project. We would not have brought an inland dredge to do this project. So in two cases, we just don't believe that Aetna had a responsible or a responsive bid to this project because it's not the right vessel. Legally, they can do it, but is it really the best practice? No. Secondly, we don't believe it's responsive because, again, it's 195 days to complete, and they are already telling you they cannot do it in that duration.
John, just one other thing. Are you done, Councilor King?
Yes, I am. Thanks.
Is it safe to say that both you and Aetna would have, you'd mentioned about potential change orders, you go over budget. Aetna could certainly do it. Your bid did not have any guarantees that you wouldn't go over budget, did it?
I'm not, well, I think we're already over budget. I believe the budget y'all had was 24 or 25.
I meant what the dollar amount that you proposed, the $37,191 million. Is there anything in your bid guaranteeing that there would be no change orders above that amount?
I think it would be our bid would, unless there's some unforeseen condition like a shipwreck in the Barrow area or protesters on the beach, stopping a pipeline, which does happen. But for any unforeseen, no, so there'd be no change orders unless there's some major unforeseen. And I don't think there'd be change orders for Aetna either, by the way. I think there'd be liquidated damages for Aetna for finishing on time, but I think they would be subject to the same thing, anything unforeseen.
Okay.
It was surveyed back in November 21, so there could be something that washed out over there, but I doubt there's much out there in the Barrow area.
Okay.
Probably be pretty safe.
Any other questions for John?
Yeah. Can you sharpen your pencil? Get it below 37?
Well,
so one guy's at 21, you guys are at 37.
Well, we are, there's always a chance for a best and final offer, right? But we will never get close.
I'm not asking you to get close. I'm just asking if you can be willing to sharpen your pencil.
We would probably be able to do a little bit, yes, sir.
Okay.
If we, in a best and final offer. I would tell you what's different is, the vessels that we were bringing, the offshore dredges, these are 60, 70, 80, 90 million dollar vessels. The dredge that Aetna is bringing is a $2.5 million vessel. They're just different. They're just completely different. And that's why ours is so much more expensive. It's not that we're making that much more money. We have 34 people that live on the dredge. Aetna will have probably 7 guys during the day crew and 5 guys at night. So, it's just really apples and oranges. So.
Okay. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Mike? We hear from Mike, right?
Yes. And also, I want to bring something up that has not been brought up. We have our consultant has said that Aetna can do the work and they can do it within the time frame involved. I don't know how I'm going to defend the lawsuit by Aetna against the town. And there would be, I believe, dramatic damages. So just another
You mean
thing
if
having
we
to do.
choose to go a different route?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And that would come out of that. We would not get funding for that. That would come out of the town's coffers because that's not covered by insurance.
So run that by us again.
Yeah.
Okay.
Who spoke to whom?
I'm sorry?
So Aetna told you?
No, Aetna did not say anything, but they'd be crazy not to.
So this is your opinion.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Okay.
It's
So let me
as a lawyer.
Let's set the premise here. As a non-lawyer, we would in essence be reversing our decision based upon the second bidder's perception of best practices. In other words, the successful bidder is not in any violation of any federal or state or local or county ordinances or regulations or guidelines. Because I believe the second bidder admitted that. It's just based upon his professional opinion, not based on any violation of any regulatory ordinances or statutes. So I don't know how we would defend switching in court either if we got sued by the original bidder.
I have no earthly idea
Yeah.
how I would defend on that.
I'm with you on that, Becky. I agree with you 100%. As much as I respect this gentleman's professional opinion, legally, I don't know how we would ever reverse course. I agree with you.
Don't know either.
Yep.
But I will tell you, this is a contractual issue, which is not covered by insurance. So we're talking about bottom line general fund money.
And what's our exposure then, potentially?
Great.
I think she already said it.
Significant.
Significant.
Very significant.
Mike, you want to come up for just a couple minutes? Or Chad, whomever?
We were going to ask Cannons from Otna
Okay.
to respond first.
Sure. Sorry, I didn't know you were back there.
Oh, that's all right. Wes Gammons, VP from Otna Marine Construction. Pleasure to see you guys all today. Thank you for giving me your time. John, thanks for your presentation. We appreciate that too. Kind of like a David and Goliath story is what we've put out here, right? It's the hammer, the sledgehammer versus the hammer. They both do the job. Which one does the job better? Which one's fit for the right job? Can John's dredge and Cal Marine's dredge do the job? Sure. Is there potential that maybe they can't get into the near shore borrow area with the draft of their dredge? I don't know. That's for them. That's their bid. I know what we bid. We bid the appropriate dredge for the appropriate job. We have a secondary dredge that's a backup in case there's any major breakdowns. We can plug another dredge in and keep on going so we can limit our downtime. We've successfully done some projects in the near shore borrow areas, which is similar to what we're doing here. I know we've referred to it several times throughout this meeting as offshore. There's two borrow areas for this project. There's one that is offshore, 21 nautical miles offshore, and then there is the near shore, which is 1.5 nautical miles. We're protected. We're still kind of inside the range there. You've got your barrier islands to the north that are protecting you. We've got a quick disconnect, as John mentioned. We've got a tug that's not just a little small tug. We actually have the appropriate size tug so we can pull and get in if we need to for severe weather or just normal everyday bad storm that we see coming. We watch the radar all the time, and I believe we have the right job, the right tool for the right job. We did successfully complete a project through Hummiston and Moore and City of Marco, Tiger Tail, where we were offshore about the same 8,500 feet offshore in the Gulf of Mexico for the Tiger Tail Lagoon project. We successfully did that. We pulled in times of bad weather. We went back out and dredged in times of good weather. I think that the longer we prolong this, obviously we're dealing with hurricane season. We want to get this thing, get in and knock it out as quickly as we can. Can Cal Marine probably do it faster with the big equipment? Sure. Can we do it just fine, ample amount of time, under budget? Absolutely.
Okay. Any questions for Wes? No? Thanks, Wes. No, go
I
ahead.
just can't let this go,
Yes, sir.
Wes, because I'm sure you want a minute to opine on this. An inference has been made that your folks would be at risk if they took this job. Is that something that you're comfortable with that statement?
I would never put my folks at risk.
I didn't think so. Do you have any additional comment on that, though?
We have a great EMR rating. You can check out our EMR rating. We don't have accidents. We obviously accidents can happen and things can happen. But we would put our folks in a situation where we would limit accidents to a bare minimum.
Thank you.
Just because of the dollars are out there, why do you feel that there was such a discrepancy between your bid and what they bid?
I mean, he mentioned it. He's got a big beast. He's
Yeah.
got a big beast to feed.
Just the cost of the.
Yep.
Okay. Thanks, Wes.
Yep.
Gentlemen, I think we're good for now.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks.
Good morning. For the record, Michael Poff, Coastal Engineering Consultants. As your consultant, it is one of our tasks and responsibilities to review the bids that come in. And so we receive the bids from Amy through purchasing. we do our due diligence. We contact their references, we look at their plant equipment schedules, we evaluate their production rates independently, and we use a program designed by Dr. Randall, Texas A&M. He's the dredging guru. So we are basing our analysis on theory, but it's based on pump curves and dredging data that has been used by the industry for a very long time. Based on our independent assessment, we believe Ahtna does have the equipment to achieve the production rate necessary for the project in the time frame, the contract time.
Excuse me, could we get Mr. Poff to be, he's not an interested party as far as a bidder is concerned, but he should be qualified as an expert for that reason.
I think you've already been qualified by the council in the past.
I don't think so, not
can
in
do
a
it again.
quasi-judicial hearing.
So what would you like us to do?
I would move
Just
that.
just run through your qualifications, and they will deem that you're an expert, because we need that for the quasi-judicial aspect of this.
Sure. So I have a undergraduate degree in civil engineering from the University of Delaware and a master's degree in coastal engineering from the University of Delaware. I have been working in the coastal engineering profession for over 30 years in Florida. I have designed and permitted and oversaw the construction of over 70 million cubic yards of sediment placed in the Gulf of Mexico on barrier islands from Louisiana to Florida. I have worked with both of these dredging companies. I have worked with the other companies that have been referenced here today. I'm very familiar with small dredging projects to large dredging projects. The largest project that I designed was a $200 million project in Louisiana. The smallest one is probably a small man-made canal dredging project. So I have done the designs myself. I have run the computer models. I have done the permitting, dealt with the agencies. I have represented you technically for funding applications. I work for you. I work for the City of Marco, work for Lee County, West Coast Inland Navigation District, Charlotte County, Sarasota County, Manatee County, and the state of Louisiana on all of their barrier island and coastal restoration projects.
Mr. Mayor, I would move approval of Mike Poff as an expert witness.
I'll second. Any further discussion? I'll do roll call. You want a roll call vote?
Sure.
Okay. Vice Mayor?
Aye.
I'm an aye. Councilor Stafford?
Aye.
Councilor King?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Thanks for that, Becky.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Sure. There's been discussion about safety. You've heard Callan's position and you've heard Ahtna's position. There are also written documents that were provided in your agenda package. To our knowledge, based on working with Ahtna since 2013, formerly Cavachi, they acquired Cavachi. They had a clear safety record on all the projects that we personally were the engineer for. I have spoken with their references that were non-federal, and I say that because the references that are federal, I spoke to the reference person, and those persons said they weren't allowed to share information, and we had to get it through their contractor rating performance system. We had to go through the Freedom of Information Request Act, so I did not have time to do that. So I'm basing this on the references that are in their bid document that are related to local government projects, not Army Corps of Engineers projects. I also spoke in depth with Mohammed Dabiz. He is the engineer of record from Hummiston and Moore for the Tiger Tail project. They worked in that offshore bar area. I'll say offshore to be consistent with Callan's. We do call it the near shore, but for distance-wise, about 8,500 feet offshore. With one booster, they were pumping 6,000 yards per day. So some of the averages and things that you've seen, I understand how Callan derived those averages, but they don't have the in-depth knowledge of the project like I do. I was also a consultant for the City of Marco Island. We provided surveys on the project, so I know that Ahtna can perform at a much higher production rate than what was presented by Callan in their table for an average over the course of the project. So they successfully dredged that particular bar area, a very similar environment. Ahtna has dredged the navigation channel at Matanzas Pass for the Army Corps of Engineers. They're very familiar with our area because they've worked here for the past 11 years on multiple projects. So it's my professional opinion that Ahtna can successfully complete this project in the time frame.
Go ahead, Vice Mayor.
Mike, would you just take a minute and comment on, from a public safety standpoint, the sense of urgency about getting this beach renourished as quickly as possible, and the public safety benefits that the town would derive from that, the island would derive from that?
Sure. So the beach has been severely eroded and damaged by Hurricane Ian. The vertical elevation has been diminished. We have had erosion. and we have been able to do limited truck hauls to place some of that sand back, but this project will place about 85% or so of the volume necessary to fully recover from the background erosion since the original project and the effects of Hurricane Ian. The sooner we get that sand on the beach, the more protection we all have for our upland property, for our evacuation route, and also for environmental and recreational benefits.
Thank you.
I will add that the dredge that dredged the project in 2011, it was a Lee County project. I was not the engineer of record. I do recall speaking with the engineer for the county who has gone into private business. He's no longer with the county. It was a smaller dredge. It was a 14-inch cutter head dredge. It was Florida Dredge and Dock. I believe Don Fletcher probably rolled over in his grave when John Sullivan said they got lucky. I don't think Florida Dredge and Dock and Don Fletcher ran their business on the basis of luck. They took their dredge out there. Now, they did not have to pump as far south. If you recall, that was just the north segment. But they successfully completed 400,000 cubic yards for the county. Either town had benefited from that, and I think it was deemed a very successful project. So in terms of the scale of the dredges, just wanted to give you an idea of, it was a 14-inch cutter head. Anna's proposed an 18-inch cutter head. Callan's proposed a 32-inch cutter head dredge. As far as additional funding goes, the FEMA project component is only on the north segment, the engineered beach that was completed previously. It's only for 56,000 yards. They will pay 90% of the cost for those 56,000 yards. So whatever bid you choose, FEMA will adjust their amount of money that they reimburse you for to match that. But FEMA's not going to go qualify the central and south segments and give you additional funding because that's not part of the FEMA program. FEMA has given you everything that they're going to give you except for the 56,000 yards, and they'll pay 90% of that. Would Lee County or DEP have additional funding? It's certainly possible, but it's based on public access, it's based on percentages, it's based on going through the approval processes, and I don't believe we can get that done in the next 3 months to get that kind of funding to go to the next level of bidders. So,
And there would still be the component of the 10% that the town would have to cover in the difference of that.
actually, for those grants, it's 15%.
Oh,
So, yes.
okay.
And I do believe Ahtna is prepared to begin in June. So, Wes, is that correct? So that Ahtna is prepared to begin the project in June.
So all the permits are in place? I know
We have
you
to
were-
make some pre-construction submittals, yes, we have all the permits. There are a few steps we have to go through to get the, what's called the notice to proceed from the agencies, but
Okay.
we are ready to go.
I think you covered a lot of the questions I had. Just in your, any other questions for Mike? No? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, Becky, where do we go from here?
The case law in Florida is very clear. Y'all are bound by the bid documents and by your, what your experts say. And I think anything that you might do beyond that is at the town's risk. So I recommend denying the protest.
Okay. Is there a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I would make a motion that we deny bid protest ITB 24-03EN.
Second.
I've got a motion by Vice Mayor Adderholt, seconded by Councilor King. Any further discussion? You want roll call vote as well?
Yes,
Okay.
please.
Vice Mayor Adderholt?
Aye, correct? We're
Yeah,
voting
Aye
aye.
to the- yes.
Aye to the
Aye.
motion to reject. Yes, gotcha.
To reject it.
Councilor
Sure,
King?
clear.
Aye.
Councilor Safford?
Aye.
Mayor Allers is aye. Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, and we will prepare a written order and get it signed. I believe, Mayor, you're going to be gone, so the Vice Mayor will sign the written order.
Okay. Next is Resolution 24-99. This is not quasi-judicial, correct?
No, it's not.
Resolution 24-99, ITB-24-03-EN, Beach Nourishment, Aetna. You want me to read the whole resolution?
Yes,
Okay.
please.
A resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Fort Myers Beach, Florida, approving an agreement between the Town of Fort Myers Beach and Aetna Marine and Construction, LLC, to complete the Estero Island Beach Nourishment and Hurricane Recovery Project, authorizing the town manager to execute an agreement and expend budgeted funds on behalf of the town, providing for scrivener's errors, severability, and an effective date. Is there any discussion?
And you need to ask for public comment
Okay.
on this.
Public comment? Is there anyone that would like to speak in public comment for this resolution 24-99? Yes, sir. Come on up, Mr. Sullivan.
John Sullivan, Callan Marine. So just, Ms. Voss, just to make a few comments. So she said that you are bound by the bid documents and by what your experts suggest. I would claim that by your own bid documents, that Aetna was not responsive. The job has to be done in 195 days. They are already telling you in their own submission that they will not be done in 195 days. So they've already said that they do not comply. So I don't believe that you would be subject to what Ms. Voss said, that that you have to follow what what your experts say, because I would tell you that even Aetna is saying that they can't be done in time. So that's one thing. But I also want to go ahead and tell you, so I think that's wrong, but I also want to tell you that if you vote to approve Aetna, we're gone. We're not gonna claim, we're not gonna sue you. We're gonna go to work somewhere else. And this, if there's one thing that I want to accomplish today, and I really mean this, and I mean this to Wes, if this is a heightened sense of security and safety, that if y'all approve Aetna, and he says that, oh my gosh, Callan just scared the heck out of us, that it could be risky. If it saves one of their guys' lives, it was worth a plane flight. And I mean that, I really do. We're not going to sue the beach. We're not going to come after anybody. It's none of that. We're gone. And we would love to come work for you again. I do believe that you'd be making a mistake, but I'm also going to tell you that we're gone, and you're not going to hear from us again. So, meaning on this bid, if you award Aetna, and like I said, the main goal, if not approved, at least Wes, and not to say that Wes would ever put his men in danger, but at least he's had to defend it and maybe think about it a little bit more, and maybe that saves life. So with that, I feel like we've accomplished our goal if you approve it. Now, if you don't approve it and come to us, and at least give it 2 weeks and go try to find some more money, I think you'll have a beach done by the end of the year. I think there is more money out there, and we'd be very helpful, or very happy to be helpful in trying to find that. I don't see what 2 weeks hurts to go give it a hard shot, but just think about that. So,
All right, appreciate your comments, John.
thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak in public comment? Seeing none, we'll close public comment, bring it back to council for further discussion or a motion. Any further discussion?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I first of all, I appreciate the comments of the remonstrator today. I appreciate the professionalism of the presentation. Obviously, the council respectfully disagrees, but appreciate your tone and appreciate your willingness to let this go. And I appreciate your input and appreciate you being here today. With that, Mr. Mayor, I'll move resolution 24-99, ITB-24-03EN.
Second.
We can get a motion by Vice Mayor Adderholt, seconded by Councilor King. Any further discussion? Vice Mayor Adderholt?
Aye.
Councilor King?
Aye.
Councilor Safford? Aye. Mayor Allers is an aye. Motion carries unanimously. Next is final public comment. Is there anyone here for final public comment? All right, seeing none, we'll close final public comment. Town manager's items.
Thank you, Mayor. Interest of time, I've got a couple of things. We continue to respond to FEMA with the NFIP. We have our last grouping of documents they want of our 106, less the 5 or 7 that are not either in town or don't exist. We will meet with them again this week. Staff continues to do that, so we continue to stay in communication with the county and with FEMA, We'll even be visiting with FEMA in a couple of days in Washington, D.C., and kind of following up with them there just to stay on the map. But we continue to do what we have been asked to do by FEMA. Also, budget calendar is out. We will continue to talk about that as we move into June. We'll have a preliminary budget presented to you at the next council meeting, and so we to set the worst case scenario millage rate, if I'm correct, Joe, on that. So as we move forward with that, and we'll continue to have some meetings with you individually going forward. And in my absence, Mr. Hauge will be running the town.
Okay.
Quiet.
Town attorney's items?
Nothing.
Nothing? No pressure. Councilman, items and report. Councilor Safford?
Wow. So we had parallelogram lots, we had postage stamp lots, and now we have beach bar lots. So, it's my understanding that the beach bar is trying to build back, and they're going to have to go through a CPD process because their FAR calculation is only 1.0. Is that correct? So, all those lots on that street, we're going to have difficulty building back. So I don't know what the process will be, but I think we need to address those lots. And Sarah, maybe you can help me out how we can do this.
Well, the downtown zoning district, so that's pedestrian commercial. The maximum pedestrian commercial FAR is 2.5. However, the downtown zoning district has limitations from, I believe, 1.8 to 1. So there's a range depending on where they're located in regard to the downtown. Like the Times Square and Old San Carlos has a higher FAR, and then the areas that were predominantly residential with some commercial uses had a lower FAR. You could choose to increase the FAR in those areas. Pulling up the map now, I apologize.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't.
No.
Yeah, so basically the way you calculate your FAR is your square footage, but because of the coastal construction line right there, they can only calculate up to the coastal construction line. So it's really tough to get to build a building there. So I don't know what the best way to proceed. Maybe we do MMP, our next MMP meeting, we talk about it, or what the best course of action would be.
Yeah.
I think that would be a good MMP discussion because increasing FAR is a big topic. And we need to look at what the other zoning districts allow so that, you're not getting just additional
Yeah, I don't want to give the store away,
ratio,
but I believe in property rights. They're going to need some help, just like the parallelogram lots, just like the postage stamp lots. I mean, I think that.
Keep in mind that people were building on those lots prior to the storm, and we didn't have this problem. So, and we were implementing these regulations. This is not a new regulation or a new requirement. So, all the other previous ones did have to meet those FAR. If it's RS or RC zoned, it's 40% building coverage, but that doesn't look at floor area ratio. That's just building coverage. And then if you're in the downtown, it's that range. So I apologize. It takes me a while to actually get to the sections. No, you're fine.
Maybe we talk about it at MMP.
Yeah, if you can maybe bring it to an MMP for discussion, I support that. And if you could also, when we do have that, you just mentioned something that this was something that was being done well before the storm. If you could maybe bring some examples that have had to deal with the same issues that I think Scott's talking about, just for reference, I think that would be helpful for the discussion.
Okay. You may recall in the downtown zoning district, we did talk about, actually right after the storm, we made some changes to the downtown zoning district along those secondary streets to allow reduced setbacks, or actually to give them the range of setbacks so that even though they're a residential use, they could take advantage of those downtown setbacks. So we have made some changes to that in the not too distant past. When is the M&P? Which M&P would that be?
Yeah, it makes sense. The third.
Yeah, if we talk about M&P and maybe have LPA take a look at it, that'd be fantastic.
Okay.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. Vice Mayor Dowell?
A couple things. Since we just mentioned M&P, just another thought for an M&P item, particularly as we approach hurricane season. Mr. Town Manager, you and I talked about this informally, I think, the other week. Wondered if we could have a public conversation about all the good work that you're doing in terms of planning, just to convey to the public that what our plan is for reentry after a hurricane, what's our communication plan, what the hurricane passes will do, what they won't do. Those were the sort of some key issues as we wrestled last time. And I think just to have some, it sounds like the town's doing a lot, which is great, but I think if an opportunity to convey what we're doing to the public would be of comfort to people and kind of wrestle with some of the challenges that we wrestled with previously. Second of all, I think Jeff is still here. I haven't had a chance to talk to Jeff directly, but I think you'll be involved in this somehow. We had the ad hoc committee to preserve the beach school. We had one of our meetings that we're formally to meet at least twice a year, according to the interlocal agreement. We met last Tuesday, had a good conversation. The school's making good progress. They're working under a challenging budgetary situation. Teachers and principal and staff are working under, again, a challenging budget situation. The school district did offer to build a cafe/kitchen over the upcoming year, which would be a great benefit to the school. Obviously, we're still trying to meet our numbers from an enrollment standpoint. There's a lot of interesting ideas floating around. One of the things that we talked about after the meeting is potentially starting a VPK program and potentially finding a private vendor to run it, and maybe then allowing them to use town facilities like Bay Oaks to create, in essence, not only a benefit to our residents, particularly residents who have kids in the school and may have younger children as well. Instead of, some of these parents are literally driving to drop their kids off at Bay Oaks, and then they drive off island for their child care. If it could all kind of be in the same location, that would be great. Plus, it also creates a pipeline of kids to come in, people who may work on the island. If they could get involved in that Bay Oaks program through a VPK program, then you'd sort of build this pipeline to the future, which we think would help our enrollment numbers and be a benefit to the residents. And again, it would be privately run, but again, we would sign some kind of a contract with this firm where they could allow to use town facilities at a significantly reduced cost to help make them competitive. So I just wanted to posit that out there, and maybe that's an M&P conversation. I believe one of the parents, one of our members, John Koss, I think he's reached out to Danielle already and discussed it at length. You've actually heard about that? So we're working on how we would do it and what sort of next steps might be. So I don't know if that's something that my colleagues are comfortable with wrestling with, if we need an M&P on that, or we just want to task the town manager with seeing if that's possible and work it out with Jeff and some of these parents from the PTO and from the ad hoc committee. How would you like to handle that, Mr. Town Manager?
I wish he'd have come to me instead of Danielle first. I
don't think it was
at a higher level.
think he just knew.
He did mention to me the other day that he wanted to talk about this. The school system doesn't run VPK programs across the county?
As I understand it, this would be a public-private partnership to make it work. Now there may be options for the school district to handle that. It's a great question. I don't know. I'm
just curious, but yeah, we're willing to talk about it and go over it and try to explore some options. I don't know about how we would go about finding an investor to do that. Being the government, I don't know how we would separate and solicit that kind of stuff. I'd have to get with the attorneys for the legalities of that. kind of thing.
Becky, you're making an interesting face. Put your thinking cap on. Again, it would be, they would assume, well, we'd have to figure out a way where they would assume liability, but maybe then sign a lease with the town to use our facilities at maybe significantly reduced rate to induce them to do this and to make them competitive. But this is just, we've got to start thinking out of the box to help our enrollment numbers grow for the school. And I think it would be, imagine these parents on it. We want to maintain a diverse socioeconomic background on this island. And if we want to have parents and workers, quite frankly, particularly those who have young children or multiple kids, they're literally having to drive to the school, especially during season, during traffic, and then drive off island to their child care provider. It's a challenge and logistic challenge that almost is insurmountable. So if we could sort of help them think through that, again, the town wouldn't be, this would be done by a private provider. People would still pay whatever they're paying for their daycare costs. But if they had that facility that with the proximity to the school in Bay Oaks, could be something that could help the school in the long run. So I guess if everybody just put their thinking
I can
caps
work
on.
with Andy on that.
All right.
I just Googled VPK with Lee County Schools, and there's a program, the School District of Lee County's VPK School Year Program provides early child education to 4-year-olds whose families meet free lunch guidelines who will be entering kindergarten the next fall. 540-hour school system.
Yeah, I think this
is something different.
Yeah, I think it's a little different because I don't think this was based on income, and the parents are willing to pay and pay a provider, and so it would be just a kind of a public-private partnership for where we could utilize our facilities at a discounted rate in order to help the cause of the school. Again, lots of research needs to be done, but I just thought I'd posit the question.
Excellent.
That's all I have, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Yeah. Councilor King?
I've got a couple items. Residents have been bringing a couple things to me. One, Chad, I'm going to have to reach out to you on this. Concerns about beach access is being blocked on the south end. I assume that's roping off by FWC. I just don't know what you're aware of that and what you can share.
Chad Schutz, Town of Fort Myers Beach environmental staff. So we're speaking of Carlos Point Beach in particular with the...
They just told me south end beach accesses, period.
So I have heard some complaints coming from some of the condos there, and there's been some concern with regards to the FWC creating buffer zones for the nesting birds down there. That's something that's been typically resolved and negotiated between FWC and the properties themselves. It's been an odd couple of years between the hurricane and lack of traffic on the beach. So I can follow up with the condos and with FWC and see what the complaints are and see what we can facilitate.
Can I be a part of that too, please?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Pardon me?
That's a good idea.
Also, the second part, I had a resident come to me last week with concerns for the restaurants for this summer on island, and wondered if the town could help by waiving parking. And the first thought that came to my mind was possibly a good way to do that would be to have folks present a stamped receipt, because a lot of these businesses have their stamps now with the pub passport things, and maybe we could then refund the money back to those folks. But I understand after meeting with Frankie and Tom that we're charged for processing refunds. So I think that went out of my mind. But another thought that entered was just a possibility of maybe a couple hours of free parking for lunch from like 11 to 1. And then maybe 3 hours for dinner for 4 to 7 for June, July, and August. And I'm not trying to give away the whole store. And I just think any help that folks could get from us would be a big something to get them over the hump of the off season.
I would fully support that. Of course, not counting holidays. I mean,
right.
If I could, Councilor King, I think I was approached by the same resident. I think what I'm curious about, Mr. Town Manager or Frankie, whoever's tracking this, if we've had a chance to look, if you look downtown after 5, not a lot of people parking in those spots now. And the concept of marketing free parking for during dinner or lunch or whatever John was talking about, I think that almost might outweigh the fiscal impact, which may be minimal. If there is minimal fiscal impact, just the messaging for us to be able to say free parking during off season in those downtown, it could be great, and for these restaurants. So I guess it would be helpful to have some kind of an idea what the fiscal impact would be, and if it's minimal, boy, the marketing plus, not just for the restaurants, but for the merchants and the other shops down there, could be great, because it's going to be a long, hot summer for these businesses.
Good morning. Frankie, your Project Operations and Compliance Director for the town of Fort Myers Beach. We have looked at this a lot, and I'm totally on board with all that. You tell us how you want it messaged, and we'll get it out there. I think it's great for the town. We are seeing a lot of influx of day trippers, people that are here in the greater Fort Myers area that just want to come down and know that the beach isn't the beach at the moment, but still know that there's plenty of places to go and have a drink or something to eat. This would totally help a lot of these companies and restaurants, whatever you want to call them, businesses, to get back on their feet and help them through the kind of the long summer months here. So you tell how you want to proceed, and we'll definitely get that going.
Look, John, are you looking, I guess I'm a little confused. Are you looking for like all day, every day free parking, or just certain specific times?
Yeah, I think, yeah, you're right. I don't want to give away the whole store. So I think boosting it for lunch, say from 11 to 1 for free parking during that time. I don't know how we manage that, or also for dinner from say 4 to 7. So you're looking at 5 hours a day.
And that, as I understood it, John, that would not include the beach access spots, just the spots downtown, right?
Downtown, yes.
Yep.
And non-holiday.
If we were talking about just old San Carlos area and then around the curve, like covering around, just say from Crescent to the barrier of Lindhall, where the old, the Sandcastle Hotel was, those are spots that go out that way. If you would just have that designated district, we could get that message out. It's just in these locations for this amount of time on these given dates. That could easily be put out and communicate to the public. We could also come up with some temporary signage rather in those areas to also facilitate that as well.
Okay.
I think we're thinking, and I don't want to speak for John, but I think like through October 1st.
I was just thinking 90 days for the summer, but if you want to extend it, I'm okay
I'd
with
say
that
up to
too.
singer-songwriter.
Well, is October 1st sound good? Because September's pretty grim here.
Yeah, the time frame for me, it doesn't. I mean, I'm open to the time frame, and I like the idea. I'm just a little worried about the logistics without Tom being here to understand how his staff would be able to manage from 11 to 1, and then someone comes at 12:59, and
we have all new signage coming through Passport anyway, so we're doing away with the QR code. We're just going to go to a text time anyway. We were going to come up with temporary signs to let people know that we're going to a brand new sign and how to use that sign. This would be the ideal time, if you were wishing to do this, to incorporate that as well onto our temporary signage for this area, this downtown area. And it would be easily adapted to their routine. In other words, if you're talking 11 to 1, you just don't, you still have your patrols, you're just not actively doing that. Anything after 1 o'clock, I mean, what's anything, we're not talking 1:01, but 1:15, 1:20, you're well within that time frame where you could start looking. We don't actively go out and do those. We don't actively go out and try to pursue. We're looking at probably a 30-minute grace, and I hate using the word grace, but an active time to start enforcement. So realistically, you're not sending people down there at 1 o'clock because it ends at 1 o'clock. You're doing it within reason. Tom and his staff graciously go back and try to get people that are just a few minutes over, people that didn't understand the system. They're always reaching out to them and pulling them back in and refunding that anyway. But until people get trained and understand that it's 11 to 1 for lunch crowd, and from 4 to whenever you'd come up, 7 for the nighttime crowd, I think that's more than reachable and able to get out into the public.
Yeah, I guess the 11 to the 1 is what I'm struggling with. I don't have a problem with 4 o'clock on or something, so you get people down here for dinner, but to me, it seems like it's going to be a logistical nightmare to try to quarantine off 2 hours.
I think the businesses would be fine after 4.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would make it easier for everybody.
Just a brainstorm.
No.
Yeah, no, I support the idea.
And we're just talking about Old San Carlos proper, correct?
Yeah,
I mean, if we would give perimeters, we're not talking about
Downtown.
underneath the bridges, we're not talking about hidden down a side street, some accesses that we have. So we're just talking about mainstream
Just to
parking.
make it simple, too, like June 1st through October 1st?
That makes sense.
And you could just head nod, Joe. You don't need to necessarily come up here. Would that change have a huge financial impact in what you're preparing for the budget? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I've got totals for town-wide from May 1st through the end of September. But I mean, or through September, the end of September. But that's town-wide. That's not just giving up that just one street location.
Is there a way to get data from, say, 4 o'clock on, the revenue that's been generated, or the revenue that we would
I
potentially
don't
lose?
believe you can do that through now our parking person right now. The company that we use cannot break it down per street. There's just no way of really knowing that. But
I just don't want to make a decision that's going to put Joe in a hard spot that, now he's got to redo a bunch of calculations that he's already been working on.
if you're talking 4 hours of time leeway, it's not going to be as great a revenue impact as you think.
So is everyone okay with supporting Frankie to go at least get the numbers, communicate with Joe, and then bring it back to us individually in our meetings to give him the okay, or do we have to physically bring it back here and vote on it?
You have to physically bring it back and vote on it.
And our next meeting is June 3rd,
Can
so.
we do that by
Yeah, we can get that going. I'll get him to contact Passport and come up with some figures so we all, when we sit and chat, we'll at least have the figures in front of us. And we can make an educated decision at that point, at least to understand where the town is coming from. And then we can also get with Joe and make sure that that's.
We can count the spaces and worst case scenario, 4 to 7, what it would cost to lose that revenue. That's
Correct.
That's just no, we don't have to ask anybody. We just do a calculation.
Correct.
Yeah, and if you want to start at June 1st, you can authorize it now, and then.
Well, I don't think a couple of days is going to make a huge difference.
Okay.
June 1st to June 3rd is not going to make a huge difference.
Okay.
Yeah, we can easily get that information to you all.
Okay. Does everybody
Thank you,
support
Frankie.
that direction
Yep.
for June 3rd?
Sounds good.
Okay. Thanks, Frankie. John?
That's it for me.
Okay. I just have one thing briefly. I've talked to Jason Green about it. I went back and watched the very lengthy comp plan discussion that we had. There was a lot of information in that meeting to try to unpack. So I felt it was necessary to go back and watch it. And one thing that was concerning was the changing of the calculations to FAR. To calculate density through FAR versus the way that it's being done now. And the reason it was concerning to me is, we've all voted unanimously several times that we don't want to just give away intensity or density by right. And Jason, it took a little while, but I think talking with Jason, he understood where I was coming from on how that could potentially be the outcome by making that change. And he was going to look into ways to have backstops to not allow that to happen. Not that I don't support doing that, but, the question was someone could come and accumulate 4 or 5 very large properties in a certain zone, and we would have no control other than FAR to control how many density units were inside that building. And that's kind of where my concern came from. Could it happen? We don't know, but it would open up the possibility for someone to be able to do that, which they couldn't do now. And that's where my concern came in. So he was going to look into it to hopefully bring it back when we have these discussions to see what the ramifications could be from that if someone wants to do it, and if there's a way to put verbiage in there to prevent that from being something that could happen, if that makes sense. I haven't had a chance to talk to you about this yet, but I did have a conversation with Jason.
Yes, that does make sense. We've already transmitted to the state.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean we can't make changes after we get back comments from the state. We could put in room size limitations, but keep in mind that the FAR that you currently have is not particularly high. So if someone applies the FAR and you don't make any changes to the under, right Right now,
Right.
there's been a lot of discussion about getting
I'm glad
rid
you
of
brought that up, 'cause I was gonna
the
say.
FAR underneath the building. If you chose not to do that, that's a pretty good limit, in addition to height and setbacks. So with those limitations in place, I don't know that you risk overbuilding too much, even if somebody was making really small rooms. But if you wanted to include something about room sizes,
Well, I'm glad you said, because I forgot to mention that, because there is some misunderstanding out there that FAR currently is not being calculated for below base flood elevation or for parking, but we haven't made that change, correct?
that's correct. That still is in the code. That is something that we have discussed, but that's in the land development code.
Right. So I just wanted people to understand that has not changed. So you still have to calculate FAR at below base flood elevation currently.
Yes, we do have several applications that have submitted for and include deviations to requests to not include that as part of their FAR.
Right.
So Sarah, did this not come up? I believe it came up during the Myerside discussion at the LPA. Didn't someone ask about this issue and this change of potentially giving entities something by right that they didn't otherwise have? Do you remember that colloquy?
Yes.
Yeah.
So it isn't that we're giving something away. It's that so in the past, whenever people would ask for, they would ask for an increase in their multiplier. So oftentimes people would come and you right now would have a multiplier of 1.5 to 2.5. I think that's the range. So that's the density times that 1.5 or that 2.5. And in most instances, that's not enough to do a hotel with at all. We've had several come in to try to use the multiplier, and it's never really worked out. So they've been, this one, they asked for, Myerside, they asked for an increase in the multiplier to 5.6, from 2.5 to 5.6. I believe Margaritaville did something very similar to that, asked for an increase in the multiplier, and so that's how that works. So it's not an increase, because hotel rooms are not truly density. They're, in general, in the world of planning, they're considered intensity, because that's a commercial use, not a residential use. So
I believe this was just to make sure we're talking about the same thing, and this was in response to a missive that came from Councilor Veach.
Yes.
Okay, that's what you're referencing?
Yes.
Okay, and explain. Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to get it out there that I just saw an opportunity there that I think would be a consequence of something by making a change. If we were to move forward with getting rid of the calculations below base flood elevation, that could be a huge increase in intensity if you're using it in the commercial sense to someone that could, I mean, that's a huge increase that would be granted to them by right with the changes that we've proposed through the comp plan. And that's what caught my attention. So, like I said, if you want to talk to Jason and kind of get with it and bring some kind of verbiage back, I just want, and I guess I don't know if anybody's understanding what I'm really trying to say is it could be someone could come and acquire 5, 6, 7 pieces of property and then try to rezone it to the highest, most intense use. And by making this change and potentially eliminating the base flood elevation, that could be a lot of rooms. I mean, you're talking a lot of rooms, which impacts the traffic, the infrastructure, all the other things. And I just want to have some sort of safeguard that can't happen. Without, I mean, you can still come in and ask. I don't want to take away anybody's right to ask for something, but to just inherently potentially give that away is the way I'm seeing it. And I don't know that's the direction I feel comfortable going with. So I don't know where we go from there as far as bringing it back.
I have to say, having received the email from Councilor Veach, I've actually heard from a couple other people on the island that had this concern, and then I listened to the discussion at the LPA, and I welcome more discussion because I'm a little bit confused myself, to be honest with you.
Well, I think it's easy with visuals. Like you did a great job with the visuals on buildings and what FAR looks like, and I think people understood that. So I don't know if it's possible to do a scenario that, if you were to do this, get rid of the calculations for below base flood elevation, and you were to make this FAR change for density for commercial properties, what that could potentially look like on a decent sized lot, or on maybe even. I think you know where I'm going with that.
I might pull up some of the visuals that I put together before and maybe add to, just so there's sort of some some ability to see what that would look like.
But I think it's important if you're going to do that to not just have the box, because we all understand the box, but if I can by right have this box, but I can now, because of these changes, have 500 hotel rooms where I could only have 200. That's what I think an unseen consequence that could come from making these changes. So if there's a way to make the changes, if that's the way we want to go, but also have a backstop through the LDC or however we have to do it, to not allow someone to go from, and I'm just using these as rough numbers, but to go from 200 hotel units to 500 hotel units and not have to really, the town has no seat at the table, so to speak. I think that's a consequence that, at least we've all spoken in public and voted on it, that's not a consequence we want to take or put in place, actually.
And I think that your floor area ratio in the zoning districts takes care of that pretty well, because it's still relatively low. Somebody cannot get to the 2.5 without coming before you guys.
Sure.
So that's one really good backstop, is that nobody can get over the 1.8 is the max that they can get. Yeah, in the downtown zoning district, and they can't get higher than 1.8 without coming before you guys. So that's one helpful way. But I'll talk with Jason and see what else we could put in there.
Okay. That's all I had. Is there anything else?
For those of you about to pull a Peter, Paul, and Mary leaving on a jet plane, good trip. And with that, I'll move to adjourn.
I'll second.
Motion by Counselor King, seconded by Counselor Safford. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned at 11:35.